Chapter 3653. Damn it. Now that things have come to a head. Just as Xiao Hua's thoughts emerged, the green-robed Xiao Hua immediately knew and immediately said. Xiao Hua slightly nodded. A faint sense of guilt appeared in his heart. Just as this guilt appeared, the green-robed Xiao Hua brought Taoist Master Jing Ting to a place not far away. However, at this time, the green-robed Xiao Hua's spirit body had already been exhausted. He no longer used his spirit body and waved his hand. A nascent soul spirit body under Taoist Master Jing Ting immediately flew in front of him. Xiao Hua looked at Xiao Hua and waited for Xiao Hua to speak. Xiao Hua looked at the pale nascent soul and said in a low voice, "Now that I want to escape, I have to rely on fellow Taoist strength. Once I escape, I will chant the rebirth mantra for fellow Taoist and send fellow Taoist into the cycle of reincarnation. This is 100 times better than fellow Taoist falling into the Lianyao pot." With that, Xiao Hua nodded towards the green-robed Xiao Hua. The green-robed Xiao Hua flicked his finger. Boom! The nascent soul spirit body immediately exploded. The explosion created a powerful force that pushed Xiao Hua and the green-robed Xiao Hua's spirit body in two different directions. Right now, Xiao Hua shouted in his heart, "Xiao Hua, use the teleportation technique and rush out of the whirlpool's suction force." After he finished speaking, Xiao Hua roused all the magic power in his body and activated the wind escape technique. He used all his strength to borrow this strong momentum to fly away. However, at this moment, Xiao Hua's gaze swept past the green-robed Xiao Hua. He saw a string of more than 10 nascent soul spirit bodies being dragged out by him and flew far away. Xiao Hua's heart was moved. It would be a waste if he didn't take them, but it would be a waste if he took them. His spirit sense was like a hammer, immediately probing into the fire net that had not yet been extinguished. His spirit sense giant hand scooped up the whirlpool. No matter how much it scooped up, Xiao Hua immediately rushed out as fast as lightning. Aya, why are they so heavy? The nascent soul spirit bodies falling into the spirit sense giant hand were not as light as Xiao Hua looked. Every nascent soul seemed to be 1,000 caddies heavy. Xiao Hua was shocked, but also realized that the Lianyao pot's main purpose here was to collect nascent souls. He wanted to snatch food from the tiger's mouth, so his nascent soul naturally had to be heavy. However, how could Xiao Hua let go of the advantage in his mouth? After nearly a year of tempering his spirit sense, Xiao Hua didn't let him down. While urging his magic power, more than 10 nascent souls were big and small were also caught by Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua hurriedly took a break and hurriedly imprisoned these nascent souls into his dantian. Then, he urged using the wind escape technique to escape from the whirlpool and flew towards Xiao Hua's direction. Die, 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 die. Suddenly, 3 angry voices came from the other side of the whirlpool. It was Kong Hanwu. When he heard the strange noise from the whirlpool, he sensed it and hurriedly flew over to take a look. When Kong Hanwu saw that Xiao Hua had actually escaped from the vortex while he had been slacking for only a few moments, and that there were more than 10 nascent soul cultivators flying out from the same direction as Xiao Hua, Kong Hanwu was truly enraged. He cursed a few times and waved his hands, causing hundreds of pillars of boundless qi to smash towards him. As for the green-robed Xiao Hua and the other nascent soul cultivators, Kong Hanwu didn't even spare them a glance. Wu! Just as the great pillar of qi was formed, before it could even travel a few feet, the green-robed Xiao Hua at the edge of the vortex waved his small hand, and the icy mirror appeared once again. Between the swirling wind and the surging clouds, a thick 6-colored brilliance rushed towards Kong Hanwu. Wherever the brilliance passed, the great pillar of qi would immediately melt like ice water in boiling soup, turning into ordinary great pillar of qi. Kong Hanwu stared blankly for a moment, then grinned and waved his sleeve. Wu! There was no pillar of righteous qi, but an incomparably powerful righteous qi turned into a hurricane and rushed towards the green-robed Xiao Hua, as if it wanted to blow this group of nascent soul cultivators back into the vortex. Not good. Xiao Hua was shocked. Just as he was about to urge the wind escape technique to go over, he heard Xiao Hua's sinister laughter. Xiao Hua raised his eyebrows. Sure enough, he saw the green-robed Xiao Hua extend the ice seam mirror. Another thick beam of light rushed out from the ice seam mirror. However, this beam of light didn't directly cover Kong Hongwu's noble qi. Instead, it rushed towards the whirlpool. However, the moment the beam of light touched the whirlpool, it abruptly turned back. Huh! When the noble qi hit the light pillar seemed to have suffered a heavy blow. It immediately trembled and rapidly retreated. When it fell into the suction force of the whirlpool, it once again fiercely attacked the green-robed Xiao Hua in the same direction as before. Looking at the green-robed Xiao Hua again, the ice seam mirror in his hand slightly changed direction. When the huge force landed on the ice seam mirror, it was as if Kong Hongwu used all his strength to push the green-robed Xiao Hua into the air. It was as if the green-robed Xiao Hua was flying straight towards him. Great! Xiao Hua was ecstatic, not only because of Xiao Hua's quick-wittedness, but also because of the ice seam mirror's wonders. Needless to say, in this year, Xiao Hua must have used all his strength to refine this ice seam mirror. Now, the ice seam mirror must have reached the level of a spirit tool. Xiao Hua was ecstatic and once again urged the wind escape technique. When Xiao Hua arrived like a gust of wind, Xiao Hua also borrowed this force, and his body accelerated again. At the same time, his divine sense swept out, and more than 10 nascent souls entered his dantian. When Xiao Hua entered Xiao Hua's body, he flicked his finger. Boom! The few remaining nascent souls exploded again, and this explosive force once again pushed Xiao Hua. Woo! The mournful sound of the air breaking was endless. Xiao Hua felt his body become lighter, and finally escaped from the whirlpool's suction force. At this time, Kong Hongwu, who had been stunned by the series of strange changes in the distance, seemed to have awoken from a dream. Only now did he realize that the nascent soul in front of him was actually in cahoots with Xiao Hua. Damn it! Kong Hongwu was really angry, and he couldn't help but curse again. Xiao Hua's behavior was really too much. It seemed that not only did he notice this great formation, but he also didn't forget to take more than 10 nascent souls from the demon refining pot in front of him. This was a naked slap in the face. Kong Hongwu felt a burning pain on his face. Kong Hongwu waved his hands, and thousands of inscriptions appeared, and a nascent soul phantom the same size as Kong Hongwu appeared. This phantom actually turned into a pair of huge wings, and in a flash, it chased in the direction Xiao Hua escaped in. Xiao Hua sneered. Since he saved Taoist Jing Ting's nascent soul, and Xiao Hua returned safely, who would still fight Kong Hongwu to the death. Almost without hesitation, he urged the lightning escape technique to rush into the starry sky. Xiao Hua, give me your life. Although Kong Hongwu used the soul refining technique and could change his nascent soul at will, and even turn it into nothingness, he still couldn't reach Xiao Hua's lightning escape technique. However, in a flash, Xiao Hua had already rushed into the starry sky, leaving behind an inexplicable star path. Kong Hongwu's face showed a sneer again, because he understood that this starry sky was a maze even more strange than the sun, moon, and Stargrave formation. If he didn't have the guidance of the immortal general who set up the formation, he absolutely wouldn't dare to rashly enter. The trap in the maze was also inextricably linked to the whirlpool of the demon refining pot. Kong Hongwu was just bluffing again, so that Xiao Hua would rush into the maze without looking carefully and once again fall into the whirlpool of the demon refining pot. However, that short-lived sneer just fell on Kong Hongwu's face and quickly disappeared. Because although Xiao Hua used the light escape technique, the star path below him was rugged and winding, and he simply didn't want to fly straight. How did this guy know about the maze set up by the immortal general of the Immortal Palace? Kong Hongwu roared in disbelief, and a flying sword almost flew out of his eyes to kill Xiao Hua on the spot. This was because Xiao Hua was still flying straight at the start. That star path was rather obvious, but towards the end, Xiaohua was actually leaping through the starry sky like a ghost. That star path was like a splashing painting. Stroke by stroke, it was painted in the darkness. In particular, Xiaohua's wind escape technique was so flexible. While Kong Hongwu was stunned, Xiaohua had already flown very far away. I absolutely can't let this guy escape here. Absolutely can't. Kong Hongwu suddenly had a premonition that as long as Xiaohua could escape from this great formation, he feared that even if he ascended to the ninth heaven or descended to the ninth underworld, he wouldn't be able to catch up with Xiaohua. Moreover, if Xiaohua leaked the situation of this great formation, even if he could deny it, the number of nascent soul cultivators who died in the Jade Pavilion meeting was unprecedented, and any cultivator would be suspicious. Perhaps the Immortal Palace wouldn't care about this little bit of suspicion, but what about him? Obviously, the guarantee he made in front of the Immortal Emissary had already lost its effect. Thinking of the Immortal Emissary, thinking of that Gidge smile and the her that the Immortal Emissary spoke of, Kong Hongwu shuddered and immediately made a decision in his heart. Immediately, Kong Hongwu unhesitatingly spread out the wings on his back, and his whole body suddenly became illusory, and he pounced into the darkness. Although the path he took was different, and the star path below him wasn't clear, it was obvious that his direction was in front of Xiaohua, and his path was much closer than Xiaohua's. "Grandma, this old man is tired to death." As soon as the green-robed Xiaohua fell into Xiaohua's body, he immediately shouted. Although he didn't say much, Xiaohua already knew what happened in the past year. Xiaohua was shocked, and he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. However, before he could say anything to the green-robed Xiaohua, the green-robed Xiaohua immediately hid in the space. Rumble! A huge sound was produced in the space, and a thunderbolt fell on the green-robed Xiaohua's body. Not only did his thin body bulge like a balloon, but his dim figure also quickly became clear under the thunderbolts. "Cool! Cool! Cool!" The green-robed Xiaohua shouted 3 times, lying in the air like a dead pig, and looked at the 9 suns in the sky with his 4 feet facing the sky. He didn't even want to move. However, in just a moment, the green-robed Xiaohua suddenly jumped up from the sky and shouted, "No, no, this old man also wants to establish a sect. This old man also wants to accumulate merits." Chapter 36:54. While speaking, green-robed Xiaohua shouted, "Where is fellow Taoist? Where is fellow Taoist?" Unfortunately, although Xiaohua heard green-robed Xiaohua's voice, he was currently focused on escaping. How could he have time to pay attention to him? Seeing that there was no response, green-robed Xiaohua also knew that he was in a dangerous situation. He shrugged his shoulders and waved his hand, taking a jade slip. It was precisely left behind by the mysterious Do Shanjun. He placed it on his forehead. That jade slip instantly entered green-robed Xiaohua's body. Immediately, green-robed Xiaohua sat down cross-legged and began to comprehend. It seemed that the life and death experience in the Devil Refining Gourd had allowed green-robed Xiaohua to comprehend many things. He finally began to seriously and actively cultivate. Green-robed Xiaohua's comprehension was naturally the comprehension of the other primordial spirits. The other primordial spirits also began to feel a sense of crisis and began to cultivate with all their strength. Although Xiaohua's mind did not enter the space, he could still comprehend green-robed Xiaohua's thoughts. He sighed with emotion in his heart. The sharpness of a sword is sharpened. The fragrance of plum blossoms comes from the bitter cold. At the same time, he was also doing his best to escape. If he did not escape from this great formation, everything would be nonsense. While Xiaohua was escaping, he was also observing Kong Hongwu's whereabouts. Unfortunately, it was as dark as night, and his divine sense could not be used. Xiaohua could not see where Kong Hongwu was. Xiaohua could only desperately use his naked eyes to distinguish the path in the void. He could only use the wind escape technique with all his might, hoping that he could escape to the cave before Kong Hongwu. However, after flying for a while, Xiao Hua seemed to have thought of something. His expression suddenly changed, and his figure suddenly stopped in the darkness. A layer of cold sweat appeared on his back. Damn it, I almost fell into that old thief's trap again. Xiao Hua's mind turned rapidly. Outside the cave is Yaotai Mountain, Kong Hongwu's old nest. The great formation of Yaotai Mountain can be used by him. Once I leave the cave, even if I escape in front of him, how can I escape from Yaotai Mountain? Also, there's an immortal general's divine sense guarding outside the cave. Looking at his strength, he is not much weaker than Kong Hongwu. Before Kong Hongwu entered the Great Formation, he must have said something to this immortal general. Maybe there is an immortal general intercepting me outside the cave. It is unlikely that I will be able to escape smoothly. Besides, even if I could defeat Kong Hongwu on Yaotai Mountain, there are still 25 Star Lords in the entire Star Lord Hall. Every single one of them has the strength of a lower, 5th grade essence energy. If they all attack together, I'm afraid it won't be easy for this Xiao to deal with them. As for this Grand Formation, although it is the Grand Formation of the Celestial Palace and is extremely dangerous, Kong Hongwu cannot control it. At most, he can use the abundant noble qi within it. On the other hand, this Xiao also has a large amount of Heaven-Earth Yuan Qi at my disposal. I won't be at a disadvantage compared to him. I can even use the Demon Purification Pot to deal with Kong Hongwu. Before this, I only wanted to escape. With such expectations, I fear that I won't even have the chance to escape from the Array Formation. In fact, there's only one path for me right now, and that is to kill Kong Hongwu. Only with Kong Hongwu dead will I not have to worry about my life, and the Immortal Palace will not know that I was the one who destroyed the Array. Only with such a goal can I have a chance of survival. Thinking of this, Xiao Hua no longer hesitated. He immediately turned around and flew back into the Array Formation. His primordial spirit took this opportunity to enter the space. Fellow Taoist, please. Jade Archive, Xiao Hua's face was slightly anxious as he cupped his hands and bowed. Green-robed Xiao Hua hurriedly stood up in midair and cupped his hands. Fellow Taoist, please. I pay my respects. Fellow Taoist must already know what I was thinking. Jade Archive Xiao Hua said with a smile. Green-robed Xiao Hua also replied, naturally, fellow Taoist must also know what I was thinking. Yes, I know that within the Demon Purification Pot's Grand Formation, all nascent souls are affected by the Demon Purification Pot suction force. Fellow Taoist, if you control our formless nascent souls out of our bodies, we will be restrained by the Demon Purification Pot. We may not be as powerful as before. Jade Archive Xiao Huan nodded and said, but the problem is that I am definitely not that old bastard Kong Hongwu's opponent. If you don't control your nascent souls to help our lives will be in danger. Moreover, the nascent souls absorbed by the Demon Purification Pot are nascent souls that have lost their bodies. They are trees without roots. Fellow Taoist, you and I have a source of water. We don't need to be afraid of the Demon Purification Pot. Green-robed Xiao Hua still shook his head. I have already been drifting outside for a year. I am really scared and don't dare to go out again. Fellow Taoist, you should find someone else to help you. Jade Archive Xiao Hua knew what green-robed Xiao Hua was thinking, so he asked with a smile that was not a smile, then how can I make fellow Taoist help me? Green-robed Xiao Hua's eyes lit up, and he blurted out, do you agree? But immediately, green-robed Xiao Hua realized that he had forgotten himself too much. He hastily coughed, looked at the empty space, and pointed with his finger. Fellow Taoist, look, this space is a great continent. It is many times better than the hidden immortal continent. Why does fellow Taoist have the heart to let this space be abandoned? Why did little yellow and little black leave? Isn't it because this place is too quiet? The reason why I established the sect was also for you, fellow Taoist. Xiao Hua looked at green-robed Xiao Hua with a smile and nodded. Fellow Taoist, you obtained some enlightenment in the Kunlun mirror, which was not easy. Then you experienced life and death in the Demon Purification Pot's Great Formation, which was even more dangerous. I thank fellow Taoist on behalf of everyone. Now, fellow Taoist thoughts are also I's thoughts. How can I not agree? After Yaotai Mountain, I immediately ordered the disciples of Black Wind Mountain to select the poor children of the hidden immortal continent and properly arrange their families. Then, I sent them to you so that you can establish a sect and accept disciples. Good, that's right, Green-robed Xiao Hua said with a smile. That bullshit Kunlun mirror is only the size of a palm, but there are many pavilions and towers built in it. It is called the Kunlun Wonderland. Isn't this space countless times better than that so-called Kunlun Wonderland? Hee, don't compare, don't deceive yourself. Green-robed Xiao Hua said with a smile, if there is a boundary, then there is a boundary. If there is no boundary, then there is no boundary. Good or bad, it is still our home. Yes, I understand. Green-robed Xiao Hua lowered his head and answered. At the end, he did not forget to add that so-called Kunlun Wonderland has long been in ruins because the Kunlun mirror was shattered. It is more appropriate to call it the Kunlun ruins. How can I compare that thing with our home? I'm afraid we have to get the last fragment of the Kunlun Wonderland from the Xiaoyu continent's Chang Yefeng. Green-robed Xiao Huan naturally did not know that Chang Yefeng had died in the Inkcloud Black Forest. He still thought that the fragment of the Kunlun mirror was in Chang Yefeng's hands. Who asked you to be merciful? Green-robed Xiao Hua sneered. At that time, although you thought that Chang Yefeng was holding the clear sky mirror, you should have snatched it even if it was the Kunlun mirror. Now, you and I will have the complete Kunlun mirror. Why do you have to be so difficult? I can snatch it, Xiao Hua said indifferently. In that case, how could I have obtained Little Deer's sword intent? How could I have obtained the primordial soul splitting technique? How could fellow Taoist still be standing here? Alas, everything is impermanent in the world, Green-robed Xiao Hua said with a sigh. Green-robed Xiao Hua knew that Green-robed Xiao Hua was right. He sighed and said, let's go. Our physical bodies have already arrived. We are almost there. Ayo, that's right. Fellow Taoist, although we can't use our spiritual will in this darkness, we can still try to ambush Kong Hongwu. We can use the darkness and the maze to catch Kong Hongwu off guard. That's right. That's right. Green-robed Xiao Hua and green-robed Xiao Hua revealed a joyful expression at the same time. They laughed loudly and said, Green-robed fellow Taoist, Bodhi fellow Taoist, let's go kill this bastard together. Let's go together. Ha ha ha. I like this kind of sneak attack the most. Green-robed Xiao Hua was extremely excited. At the side, green-robed Xiao Hua's face was gloomy. Xiao Hua's mind returned to its original position. He saw that he had arrived in front of the huge whirlpool of the demon refining pot. At this time, he saw that in the sky above the whirlpool, several nascent souls fell from there and turned into huge nascent soul dharma bodies that fell into the whirlpool. Xiao Hua understood that at this time, there should be another fight in the burning sun great formation. Xiao Hua swept a glance and didn't find any trace of Kong Hongwu. He knew that Kong Hongwu must have chased out of the maze to kill him. Therefore, he hurriedly flew to the place where Kong Hongwu was previously. After looking at it with his naked eyes for a moment, he didn't hesitate to rush into the darkness that Kong Hongwu flew into. At the same time, Xiao Hua patted his head on the top of his head. Green-robed Xiao Hua controlled the invisible nascent soul, and the Kunlun mirror in his hand appeared above his head. See, green-robed Xiao Hua suddenly appeared. He sucked in a breath of cold air and said in a low voice, Fellow Taoist, the power of this demon refining pot is really too strong. Although I have the protection of my physical body, I can't be sucked in by it. But, fellow Taoist can't feel the suction of this whirlpool from here, but I can feel that the big hand stretched out of thin air and wanted to grab I. That's right. Xiao Hua carefully flew as he replied. Actually, this poor Taoist has also sensed that the demon refining gourd's great array actually envelopes the entire space, and all nascent souls will be affected by the great array. But outside of the whirlpool, I can't feel it with my physical body. Only when I get close to the whirlpool can I be sucked in. And I understand. Green-robed Xiao Hua nodded. As long as I don't go too far away from my physical body, there shouldn't be too big of a problem. I just don't know how fellow Taoist Sub-Hoodie is doing. Namo Mithya Buddha. As he spoke, Xiaohua also released Buddha's relic, Sub-Hoodie. Sure enough, Sub-Hoodie's Buddhist light also disappeared in this darkness. Aside from Xiaohua being able to sense it, it was no different from a mass of nothingness. Fellow Taoist, what do you feel? Xiaohua asked in a low voice. Sub-Hoodie's answer was as calm as water. Nothing. It's the same as what fellow Taoist green-robed sensed. Could it be that this demon refining pod is also interested in Buddhist relics? Xiaohua was somewhat shocked. This poor monk doesn't know. I's Buddhist divine abilities are limited. I still can't sense the situation inside the demon refining pot. Sub-Hoodie said indifferently. So I can't answer fellow Taoist's question. Chapter 3655. Xiaohua pondered for a moment. Looking at the boundless darkness and the star path behind him, he ordered, Fellow immortal Bodhi, fellow Taoist green robe, you two fly to the left and right wings of I. We don't need to go too far. We'll lie in ambush here. When I sense the whereabouts of that old thief Kong, the three of us will attack at the same time. Although that guy's essence energy is at the upper 5th level, he is already cultivated to the point where he can refine his spirit into nothingness. We'll let him die without a burial place. Namo Mithya Buddha? Good. Bodhi chanted the name of Buddha. His tone was quite benevolent. His figure had already flown to the top of Xiaohua's left hand, and the Buddha seal in his hand began to form. The nascent soul controlled by Xiaohua covered its mouth and whispered, sweeping the floor, Don't harm the lives of ants, covering the lamp with moths. Hee, this is the conduct of our future Buddha. Fellow immortal is wrong. This poor monk is now Bodhi, not Mithya Buddha. Wait until this poor monk attains Buddha fruit. Then we'll discuss what it means to sweep the floor, don't harm the lives of ants, covering the lamp with moths, okay? Sub-Hoodie lightly replied. When Xiaohua heard this, he couldn't help but chuckle. Green-robed, Xiaohua had truly met his match. This Sub-Hoodie was proficient in Buddhism and even knew how to argue. Although he wasn't as talkative as green-robed Xiaohua, the things he said were always straight to the point. Xiaohua was quite bored and resentfully flew from Xiaohua's head to the right. He didn't forget to look at Xiaohua and whispered, It's said that Confucian scholars have sharp tongues. Why do I feel that monks are more powerful than Confucian scholars? Provocation, Xiaohua said indifferently, scaring Xiaohua into shrinking his neck and hurriedly flying to the side. He naturally knew Xiaohua's anger from before. Xiaohua was quite regretful that he couldn't use his divine sense in the darkness, but he still took out the wishful rod, moved aside his perception of the star path, and waited on the side. Fortunately, there weren't any traps where Xiaohua stood, so it was an excellent position for an ambush. After a full meal's time, there was no movement. Xiaohua's brows slightly wrinkled, and his heart began to beat the drum of retreat. Xiaohua felt that he might have misjudged the timid and cautious Kong Hongwu, because Kong Hongwu didn't need to come back at all. He only needed to seal this big formation. After the Yaotai gathering was over, he could use all the power of Yaotai Mountain Star Lord Palace to deal with him. At that time, Kong Hongwu didn't even need to do it himself. However, after thinking about it for a while, Xiaohua shook his head again. He did not believe that Kong Hongwu would let others know that he had broken into this great array. After all, the struggle between the various sects of the Immortal Palace seemed to be in full swing. Of course, no matter what, Xiaohua could only gamble at this moment. Sure enough, in the time it took to eat half a meal, although there was no movement, Xiaohua suddenly had a feeling that someone was coming over on this road. Xiaohua's heart was overjoyed. He hurriedly ordered Bodhi and green robe again. With one hand, he pinched a dozen fire talismans while the other hand held the wishful rod. He stared at the distance without blinking, waiting for Kong Hongwu to appear so that he could immediately attack. Oh! A rush of wind appeared, but in a moment, the wind suddenly stopped. Then the wind sounded again, and a moment later, it stopped again, and so on several times. It turns out that this old guy is also on guard against this Zhao's ambush. Xiao Hua immediately understood why Kong Hongwu was flying back and forth. He must be afraid that Xiao Hua would ambush him on the road. Unfortunately, this old guy doesn't have the talent to see through the void maze like this Xiao. Today is the day of your death. Although Kong Hongwu had been testing the waters by advancing and retreating, he could tell that Xiao Hua wasn't flying slowly. This was merely a guess. Furthermore, there hadn't been any ambushes along the way. Seeing that he was getting closer to the devil refining gourd's whirlpool, Kong Hongwu once again increased his speed. But just a few feet away from Xiao Hua, Kong Hongwu once again deliberately mystified himself and stopped, retreating a few feet. If Xiao Hua had not already known Kong Hongwu's trick, he would have thought that he had been discovered. Xiao Hua bit his lips and restrained his temper. He cursed a few times in his heart and quietly sent magical power to his hand. Now that Xiao Hua's yuanying had escaped from his body, this magical power came from the dragon vein in his meridians. Xiao Hua refined the metal essence. After a moment, the sound of Kong Hongwu's flight sounded again, rushing toward the place where Xiao Hua was lying in ambush. Estimating the timing, when Kong Hongwu was close, Xiao Hua suddenly rushed out of the darkness. With a wave of his hand, more than a dozen fire talismans fell near the sound of the wind. His other hand raised the wishful steel staff and smashed it toward Kong Hongwu's location. "Ah!" A very surprised voice cried out. Xiao Hua heard it clearly. It was the cautious Kong Hongwu. Xiao Hua could not help but be secretly proud. Even if Kong Hongwu was cautious, he still fell into his calculations here. The fire talismans alone were nothing. He was afraid that they could only block Kong Hongwu in a radius of a few feet. The wishful steel staff was still nothing. It was estimated that it could only scratch Kong Hongwu's skin. Xiao Hua seriously injured Kong Hongwu with the green-robed Xiao Hua and Bodhi hidden in the dark. Rumble. Under the urging of his magical power, the fire talismans began to roar, and the surrounding flames began to flicker. However, at the moment when these fire talismans burst, there was a sound of a ghost crying and a wolf howling, and a huge black curtain covered all the fire talismans in a flash. Even the surrounding heaven and earth essence chi was isolated, and the dozens of fire talismans did not really burst. Xiao Hua's ear rang with Kong Hongwu's proud laughter. "Do you think you hid well? Do you think this old man's clear eyes technique was cultivated in vain? But with these broken talismans, with this broken staff, you think you can kill this old man? Not good." In an instant, Xiao Hua woke up. He seemed to have been schemed against by Kong Hongwu again. At this moment, with a loud bang, Xiao Hua's wishful steel staff had already hit Kong Hongwu's arm. Kong Hongwu screamed, as if he did not expect that the wishful steel staff could actually hit his body. With Kong Hongwu's scream, a cold wind appeared in Xiao Hua's lower abdomen. Shua! There was a soft roar. It was the sound of the great spirit pillar that Xiao Hua was familiar with. Then, Xiao Hua's skin became cold. The cold feeling penetrated his body and rushed into his lower dantian. "What is this?" Xiao Hua turned pale with fright. Unfortunately, before he could circulate his dermic energy to resist this icy cold pillar of grand qi, the bone-chilling coldness had already charged into his dantian. Rumble. As soon as the cold entered his dantian, it immediately caused a strange sound like a landslide and a tsunami. Thousands of great spirit pillars were born from the void, making a destructive attack on Xiao Hua's lower dantian. In Xiao Hua's lower dantian, there was only the roaring of the 5-chi thunder. Even the 5-chi thunder of this immortal palace dissipated under this attack. In particular, when the great spirit pillar rushed into the surface of his small dantian, everything was torn apart, and even a hole was torn in a corner of his dantian. When had Xiao Hua suffered such a serious injury? His true essence could not be refined, and his magical power could not be condensed. His whole body immediately fell from the darkness. "Ha!" Kong Hongwu laughed, but there was a trace of pain in his laughter. "You actually dared to play tricks with this old man. In front of this old man, You are just a little kid. How is it, Xiaohua? Does the soul-destroying technique feel good? This is the ultimate attack of my Star Lord Palace against the Taoist Yuanying stage. Just when Kong Hongwu was getting carried away, a force comparable to a falling star came from behind him and hit his back with lightning speed. Kong Hongwu screamed and hurriedly turned his body into nothingness to dodge. Unfortunately, with a boom, the great spirit chi scattered. Kong Hongwu, who had cultivated to the realm of refining his spirit to nothingness, was unable to dodge this attack. Even the star armor on his back was shattered, and most of his shoulder was smashed into pieces. Buddha, the Buddhist seal of the Buddhist sect? Kong Hongwu's uncertain tone revealed a kind of understanding. Wasn't this the Buddhist sect expert that Xiaohua joined hands with in the star formation? However, Kong Hongwu really did not know when this Buddhist sect expert arrived at the formation, and how could he escape from his clear eyes technique? Kong Hongwu's tribulation was not only this. Before his body stabilized in midair, another seven-colored brilliance rushed out from the darkness. The pure Taoist chi and the terrifying power suddenly reminded Kong Hongwu of the Kunlun mirror he had just seen in the whirlpool of the demon refining pot. Not good. Kong Hongwu knew that now he understood that he had also fallen into Xiaohua's trap. The Yuanying stage rescued by Xiaohua had risked an ambush next to him. Boom! With a loud noise, Kong Hongwu felt a sharp pain under his right armpit. His body that had turned into nothingness still could not escape the attack of the Kunlun mirror. The star armor that had been broken before was broken inch by inch. Thousands of inscriptions fell from the star armor like dead tadpoles and turned into a faint great spirit chi. Even Kong Hongwu's body was lifted up by the huge impact of the Kunlun mirror. He was thrown high into the darkness and fell to the edge of the maze. Kong Hongwu's face was pale, but his eyes were like stars, staring at the place where Xiaohua's body fell. He did not believe that Xiaohua could be intact under the soul-destroying art. However, the cruelty of reality almost made Kong Hongwu groan. He saw that Xiaohua's body had only fallen a few dozen feet. Immediately, clouds appeared under his feet and firmly supported him. Then, the great spirit chi around him surged, and Xiaohua rushed out of the darkness again. Gold chi gathering. Kong Hongwu's eyes were sharp. When he saw the auspicious clouds under Xiaohua's feet, he immediately understood. Damn it, this Xiaohua is actually proficient in the gold chi gathering of my Confucian cultivators. Immediately, not far from Xiaohua, a bodhisattva slowly emerged from the darkness. Looking at the bodhisattva's face that was extremely similar to Xiaohua's, Kong Hongwu lost his voice again. Buddha Sarira. Chapter 3656. Understand now, in the star formation of Sun Horse of Star, where are the Buddhist sect experts? Where are the Buddhist sect experts working together with the Tao sect cultivators? It's clear that you're tempering the Buddhist sect Sarira yourself. Speaking of this, Kong Hongwu's eyes widened again, and he shouted, Xiaohua, you're actually proficient in Tao, Confucianism, and Buddhism? How is this possible? Yes, life has a limit, but learning has no limit. Even if a cultivator's lifespan is long, it's impossible to master all three. In particular, each of the three sects has its own advantages, and these advantages are also mutually exclusive. A cultivator is at most proficient in one or two sects, and only has a rough understanding of the other one. How can there be a genius who can master all three sects? Fortunately, seeing that Xiaohua could only use his true chi and couldn't use his magic power, Kong Hongwu rejoiced. This old man destroyed his nascent soul. Otherwise, with his methods, this old man would have suffered a loss. But where's the nascent soul holding the mirror magic weapon? Why didn't he show up? Could it be that nascent soul is also Xiaohua? Oh, that's impossible. That nascent soul clearly escaped from the whirlpool of the Grand Formation. Kong Hongwu naturally paid attention to the green-robed Xiao Hua who injured him. Unfortunately, how could he see any traces of the formless nascent soul within the Grand Formation? Moreover, seeing that Xiao Hua is already caught up and there are no traces of the nascent soul around him, Kong Hongwu's heart was relieved. Hall Master Kong is really cunning, Xiao Hua said with some gnashing teeth. At this time, he only has some true qi in his meridians that can be used to temper the metal essence. His entire lower dantian is a mess. Although he has just taken the time to take the heaven-mending pill, it's impossible for the heaven-mending pill to repair his dantian in a short time. At least when fighting with Kong Hongwu, Xiao Hua can no longer place his hopes on his lower dantian. Since he doesn't have enough true qi, Xiao Hua can't use the thunder escape technique, nor can he use the wind escape technique. Perhaps Xiao Hua, who is standing on a cloud, can use the ethereal steps in a crisis. Same. Of course, Kong Hongwu also took out the jade box and took the medicine of Star-Lord Hall. The bloody wounds all over his body healed visibly. However, the damage profound qi couldn't be recovered quickly. Xiao Hua glanced at the huge whirlpool on the left, then looked at Kong Hongwu and said indifferently, "Home Master Kong, only one of us can leave this cave today. Don't worry, that person is definitely me." Kong Hongwu smiled faintly. "Although this old man has suffered a hidden loss, but you don't understand the significance of my Confucian practice of returning the spirit to the void. Kill." Xiao Hua knew that he was pressed for time and didn't say anything else. He urged the auspicious cloud beneath his feet and charged towards Kong Hongwu. "Haha, just an ant." Kong Hongwu laughed heartily. Multicolored light surged around his body, and an overwhelming aura crazily rushed into his body. His entire body began to flash with inscriptions, and a sub-body soared into the sky, directly transforming into 1,000 feet in size. Without waiting for Xiao Hua's staff to strike, Kong Hongwu grabbed Xiao Hua's head, as if he wanted to suppress Xiao Hua in the shape of a big hand. Xiao Hua immediately understood what Kong Hongwu was thinking when he saw the suffocating aura rushing towards him and the huge palm that was even more powerful than the hand of a nascent soul cultivator, sealing off everything within 100 feet of him. Xiao Hua also laughed. Under the heavenly Tao, everyone is an ant. You are no exception. Between the words, the heaven and earth essence qi crazily rushed into Xiao Hua's body. The heavenly infusion technique was displayed, and the transcendence golden body was also brought out. Woo! As soon as the golden body came out, a huge fist also crossed the air, meeting Kong Hongwu's big hand. How? How is this possible? Your lower dantian. Kong Hongwu naturally didn't understand that Xiao Hua's transcendence golden body was actually driven by the heavenly laws embodiment technique. It was done by the monster body, and it had nothing to do with Xiao Hua's Taoist cultivation. He couldn't help but be surprised. Xiao Hua laughed. "Haha, old man, my Taoist cultivation technique is endless. How can a Confucian student like you know? Your so-called soul annihilation art can't do anything to this Xiao at all. This Xiao is just deceiving you." While they were talking, there was a loud bang. The fist of the Transcendence golden body hit Kong Hongwu's big hand. A huge airwave was set off, and both of their golden bodies were blown back. One of their big hands was dim, and the other's fist was broken into pieces. Woo-woo! The instant Xiao Hua's figure retreated, a seemingly rotating flying thorn rushed out from the void below him, shooting towards his heart and lungs. The sharp edge of the flying thorn tore fine lines in the void. Poof! In the nick of time, Xiao Hua opened his mouth, and a sword light appeared in the air. The sword light formed a net, and with a series of crackling noises, the palm-sized, wheel-piercing imperial weapon was stopped by the sword light. Woo! At the same time, Bodhi's Buddhist mountain seal struck again. The Buddhist sect's Buddha seal was just like the Buddhist sect's master. It was very simple, without the slightest bit of fancy tricks. However, it was this most primitive attack that made the Confucian Grandmaster Kong Hongwu feel powerless. Under the mountainous Buddhist seal, Everything within 1,000 feet of Kong Hongwu was under the control of this Buddhist seal. Amidst the violent howling of the wind, under the vast impact, one could faintly hear the sound of Sanskrit and the faint shadow of a heavenly dragon. Kong Hongwu naturally knew that he couldn't avoid the attack of the Buddhist seal with his void transformation technique. While urging the thorns to attack Xiaohua, he grabbed with his hand, and a majestic chi peak of dozens of feet in size appeared in the air. The majestic chi peak was also condensed like a mountain and rushed towards the Buddhist mountain seal. Just as Kong Hongwu waved the majestic chi peak, a series of strange humming sounds came from behind him. In the humming sounds, thousands of heaven and earth origin chi turned into a hurricane and rushed into a place. The heaven and earth origin chi was so rich that it formed a vortex of dozens of feet in size. As soon as the vortex appeared, a seven-colored brilliance rushed out from it. Wasn't it the Kunlun mirror's light beam? Kong Hongwu was scared out of his wits. He was always on guard against the sneak attack of the green-robed Xiaohua, but he really didn't expect him to secretly touch his back. The Kunlun mirror's light beam was extremely fast. As soon as it appeared, it immediately shot behind him. Moreover, the light beam was different from ordinary Dao Sect's magic treasure. It could actually injure a grandmaster who had refined his spirit back to the void. Kong Hongwu hurriedly flashed, wanting to dodge. Boom! The light beam was like lightning, and it already hit Kong Hongwu's back. Puff! With a muffled sound, Kong Hongwu's huge body was suddenly blasted with a hole of dozens of feet in size. An indescribable pain emerged from Kong Hongwu's heart. Spirit. Spirit weapon? Previously, when the Kunlun mirror hit his star armor, Kong Hongwu didn't feel it. This time, when the light beam hit his body, the light in the brilliance seemed to have a life of its own. The inscriptions that formed his body were broken, rhythmically and with varying degrees. It seemed that it didn't consume excessive heaven and earth origin chi. Kong Hongwu immediately understood after the pain. Not only that, when Kong Hongwu's body was in pain, above his head, Kacha, a fist-sized thunder was like a long, winding dragon, crossing the sky and striking the top of his head where he had just dodged. Boom! A corner of the huge head collapsed with a loud bang. The originally clear and ancient big face was extremely embarrassed. Roar! Kong Hongwu roared. A kind of livid ferocity appeared between his elegant eyebrows. Kong Hongwu had been pampered for a long time and had long been accustomed to being respected by others. He had long been accustomed to casually killing others. He didn't know how many years it had been since he had gone all out to fight with others, nor had he been forced to be flustered like this. Kong Hongwu was really ashamed and angry. He was ashamed and angry that he was in a predicament under the attack of the Dao Sect cultivator, and even more ashamed and angry that he was at a disadvantage under the hands of a 5th-grade origin chi cultivator. Take this. Xiaohua didn't care how Kong Hongwu's heart was hurt by him. With Kong Hongwu's roar, Xiaohua's golden body rushed forward again. The wishful staff had already turned into 1,000 feet long, stirring up the wind and clouds as it struck down heavily. Draw a circle on the ground. Stay still. Trapped. Kong Hongwu's face was livid, and without hesitation, he shouted 3 inscriptions in a row. As Kong Hongwu's true chi turned into inscriptions and flew out, dense pillars of true chi condensed into thin crystal threads from the space. In the blink of an eye, the space around Kong Hongwu was shrouded in a few hundred feet. The crisscrossing crystal threads surged with a power that made one's heart tremble, like a huge cocoon protecting Kong Hongwu. At the same time, thousands of crystal threads fell from the sky, sealing the space around Xiaohua. The crystal threads fell more mournfully than the rain, entangling Xiaohua's hands and feet, binding Xiaohua's body. What surprised Xiaohua the most was that these crystal threads carried a rather obvious aura of Dao Sect magic, and the power of imprisonment spread over hundreds of feet in the space. Roar! Xiaohua's arms were naturally entangled by the crystal threads that suddenly appeared. However, Xiaohua also let out a loud roar. His arms trembled, and the crystal threads were like dust that was shaken off, breaking inch by inch. Woo! Without waiting for Xiao Hua's wishful staff to fall a few more feet, there was a hissing sound like a giant python. A slender and tough true chi belt with crystal threads flashing on the four sides, with inscriptions flowing on the surface, came from the void and fell on Xiao Hua's golden body from all directions. The edge of the true chi belt was like a knife, and the inscriptions were like thorns flying through the space, drawing a ripple in the space. Oh, is this what it means to be trapped? Xiao Hua was slightly startled. This chi belt was much faster than the previous vast spirit pillar and crystal thread. As soon as it appeared, it immediately struck Xiao Hua's golden body. Swish, 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 swish. Dozens of ear-piercing sounds of friction rang out. Kong Han Wu was once again dumbstruck. He was very clear about the power of the true chi belt, and he didn't know how many cultivators and Confucian scholars had died under it. But at this time, when the true chi belt brushed against Xiao Hua's body, the dark golden brilliance on Xiao Hua's body gradually faded. This brilliance flickered rapidly, and in a moment, all the true chi belt turned into nothingness. Chapter 36:57. Demon. Kong Han Wu's eyes narrowed. As far as he knew, only the powerful demon body of the Thousand Demon Sacred Realm could resist the Great Spirit Belt so easily. It was still one ring after another, not allowing Kong Han Wu to breathe a sigh of relief. Xiao Hua's wishful staff still fell. Rumble. There was another loud sound, but the inscription cocoon around Kong Han Wu's body shook violently. Cracks appeared on the surface of the cocoon-shaped crystal silk. At the same time, waves of inscription emerged from the cracks and turned into nothingness one by one. Kong Han Wu was finally moved. One after another, accidents, a series of dumbfounded finally made him understand the power of the Dao Sect cultivator in front of him. Taking a deep breath, Kong Han Wu clapped his hand, and 3 colored clouds gushed out from the top of his head. The clouds turned into blossoms, and the falling petals filled the surrounding space. The power of these clouds was very strong, and it was somewhat similar to the Ying Luo of the Xianyuan water control flag. Xiao Hua could tell at a glance that these clouds were Kong Han Wu's lost art. If he didn't use his great divine ability, he wouldn't be able to break through them. Just when Xiao Hua was about to make a move, Kong Han Wu calmed down and said, "Xiao Hua, you really surprised this old man. This old man really didn't expect that in the Dao sect of the hidden immortal continent, there is actually such a strange person like you." Xiao Hua's eyes flashed and looked at Kong Han Wu's left side. On the left side, hundreds of feet high in the sky, Bodhi stood in the air with a Buddha seal on his hand. His face was full of mercy and there was no fear. On the right side, behind Kong Han Wu, where Xiao Hua himself couldn't see, the green-robed Xiao Hua held the Kunlun mirror and was also ready to attack. Although he had the upper hand in the current situation, Xiao Hua's heart was not optimistic. In the few exchanges just now, he had beaten Kong Han Wu into an extremely sorry state, even injuring his body. That was all done when Kong Han Wu was caught unprepared. Now, Kong Han Wu had already begun to counterattack. Although he had 3 avatars, Kong Han Wu could also use the Great Spirit Belt with his fists and feet, and his mouth could chant inscriptions. He was actually comparable to him. In particular, Kong Han Wu had not used the Imperial equipment at this time. He was afraid that as long as he took it out, he could reverse the situation. "I don't dare, I don't dare." Xiao Hua tilted his head to look at the whirlpool that was still rumbling and rotating in the distance, as well as the demon refining gourd that made him tremble with fear below it. The trace of hesitation in his heart still hadn't been removed. He turned his head to look at Kong Han Wu, who was covered in fallen petals, and replied, "This Xiao is merely an insignificant cultivator of the Dao sect. I'm not worthy of the praise of the renowned star Lord Hall Master." "Xiao Hua." Kong Han Wu's voice became kind as he said, "In fact, at this point, you don't need to explain yourself. This old man has already seen it clearly. You must be the hidden hand left behind by the Grand Mist ancestor in his early years. Without his arrangements, It would be impossible for such an outstanding cultivator like you to appear on the hidden immortal mainland. Xiaohua was noncommittal. This old man knows that you owe the Grand Mist Ancestor a great debt of gratitude, and you are unwilling to betray him. Kong Hongwu said again. However, you really don't understand. This hidden immortal mainland is the hidden immortal mainland of us Confucian cultivators. No matter what realm you cultivate to, even if your strength is on par with the Grand Mist Ancestor, you can't contend with us Confucian cultivators. Moreover, this old man will tell you the truth. My Star-Lord Hall is not the Star-Lord Hall of the hidden immortal mainland, but a small hall of the immortal palace in the hidden immortal mainland. The immortal palace in the hidden immortal mainland has many small halls like the Star-Lord Hall. You, a Dao sect cultivator, will never know the layout of the immortal palace in the hidden immortal mainland. Don't talk about you, even this old man. Only knows the tip of the iceberg. You are a cultivation genius. This old man has really never seen anyone who can cultivate Confucian cultivators, Dao sect, Buddhism sect, and perhaps your diamond body to such a realm. As a cultivator, this old man advises you to give up on the Dao sect. Under the hands of the Grand Mist Ancestor, you will definitely not live for more than 1,000 years. You will definitely not reach the peak of cultivation. Kong Hongwu earnestly advised. Moreover, you have been hit by my Star-Lord Hall's soul-destroying art. Although you don't admit it, this old man knows in his heart that no Dao sect cultivator can be hit by the soul-destroying art without any reaction, not even the Grand Mist Ancestor. It is also because of your understatement that the nascent soul in your Dantian has already been destroyed. Anyway, your nascent soul is already gone. Why are you still persisting in going about things the wrong way? If you come to my Star-Lord Hall, this old man can give you a promise right now. This old man will immediately write a letter to the Immortal Palace to give you the position of Deputy Hall Master of Star-Lord Hall. After the Jade Pavilion meeting, if there are no accidents, this old man will complete the Immortal Palace's mission and will be promoted in less than 10 years. This Star-Lord Hall will soon be under your control. With this Star-Lord Hall, Xiaohua, your Confucian cultivation base, and even your Buddhist cultivation base can skyrocket. This is a path that leads to the heavens. Home Master Kong. Xiaohua laughed. You are shaking this Zhao's Dao heart and destroying this Zhao's Dao foundation. If your words were given to any Dao sect cultivator in the hidden immortal continent, I'm afraid that 8 or 9 out of 10 Dao sect cultivators would wag their tails and beg for mercy, making them bow their heads and submit to you. Unfortunately, this Xiao is one of these 10. Even if this Xiao serves the Grand Mist Ancestor, it is not for the Grand Mist Ancestor alone. This Xiao is for the Dao sect of the world. Hall Master Kong is a Confucian cultivator. You and I have different Daos, so there's no need to say more. In this great array, there can only be one living person, either you or me. TSK. Kong Hongwu shook his head. He really did not dare to believe that such good conditions could not move Xiaohua's heart. Xiaohua, in fact, you still do not understand. The three of you attacked together, although you already have 50% of this old man's strength, but you are still not my opponent. Lamentable, pitiful. Kong Hongwu sighed 3 times in a row. His hands touched his chest, and his left hand took out a crystal-clear imperial equipment that was like a water chestnut. Starlight flowed on it, and his right hand took out a several zhong large 6-star shield. He looked at it lovingly and said in a low voice, Xiaohua, in this old man's left hand is my Star-Lord Hall's imperial equipment, the Imperial Star Piercer. It is the painstaking work of the Immortal Palace's great artificer master. Its power is comparable to your Dao sect's spirit artifact. This old man has never seen anything that the Imperial Star Piercer cannot pierce. In this old man's right hand is my Star-Lord Hall's imperial equipment, the Imperial Shield, also the proud work of the Immortal Palace's great artificer master. In the hidden immortal continent, this old man has never seen a magic artifact that can pierce its defense. Not only is the name unpleasant, It is also contradictory. Xiao Hua sneered. Kong Hongwu's figure swayed twice, and he said with a bitter smile, "This old man also feels that it is contradictory, and this old man also wants to know which of these two imperial equipment is more powerful." However, speaking of unpleasant names, the imperial equipment refined by the Immortal Palace's great artificer master should have the word imperial in it. Other imperial equipment cannot have this word, otherwise it will be overstepping the rules, and immortal soldiers can kill it. Good murderous aura, good imperial rule. Xiao Hua sneered again. This old man has not used these two imperial equipment for many years. Kong Hongwu ignored Xiao Hua's sarcasm and said indifferently, "Now, you only need to dodge the attack of the Imperial Star Piercer, and this old man will let you live." Kong Hongwu spoke righteously, and at the same time, he used the Confucian cultivator's secret technique of sharp tongue and sword lips, which was quite bewitching. Unfortunately, this kind of trick was seen through by Xiao Hua at a glance, especially. Xiao Hua himself knew Confucian cultivator techniques, and Kong Hongwu was only wasting his breath. Xiao Hua smiled indifferently and said, "Well said, Hall Master Kong. Since Hall Master Kong is benevolent, then this Xiao will also make it clear to Hall Master Kong. This Xiao will also attack, and as long as Hall Master Kong can take it, this Xiao will immediately be captured." When Kong Hongwu heard this, admiration unconsciously appeared in his eyes. His words were only to give Xiao Hua a chance to live, to make Xiao Hua prioritize escaping from the bottom of his heart, and even put all of his attention on how to block his Imperial Star Piercer. This way, Xiao Hua naturally would not think too much about attacking, and Kong Hongwu would not have any danger to his life. Especially since Xiao Hua wanted to defend, it would be very difficult to defend, and he would most likely be injured by Kong Hongwu. As for what would happen after he was injured, Kong Hongwu would not think too much about it for the time being. However, Xiao Hua simply did not pay attention to Kong Hongwu's bewitchment and also attacked with words. This attack was completely different from Kong Hongwu's. It was an attack to fight with his back to the water, an attack to put himself in death, and had long since shattered Kong Hongwu's bewitching voice. "Xiao Hua, this old man is really unwilling to make a move." Kong Hongwu still did not give up and said. Xiao Hua smiled. "Then Hall Master Kong, there is no need to make a move. See how this Xiao will kill you." While speaking, wind and clouds surged around Xiao Hua's body, and a thick pillar of qi gushed out from the void, as if it was carrying Xiao Hua, and rushed towards Kong Hongwu. Kong Hongwu could clearly see that there were no clouds under Xiao Hua's feet. Oh, could it be that this guy's dantian is really not damaged? Seeing that Xiao Hua's figure was like a shadow, and his whereabouts were erratic, it was obviously a Taoist escape technique, and Kong Hongwu once again had doubts about his own attack. Rumble! At the same time, Buddha's relic Bodhi waved the clear water bottle in his hand, and a cluster of primordial true water rushed into the air and rushed towards Kong Hongwu. Similarly, the mountainous Buddhist seal overlapped again, and compared to before, it was several times heavier and smashed towards Kong Hongwu. Ha! It's all useless. Kong Hongwu shrunk, and a shadow appeared on his right arm, and the dense inscriptions on his body rushed into the shield. Along with the appearance of these inscriptions, Kong Hongwu's body suddenly shrank by 40%. Woo! Just like the rumbling of a Taoist magic treasure, a large number of poems rushed out from the shield, and a rhythm of simple recitation rose. Along with this recitation, a large number of poems flew around Kong Hongwu's body rhythmically, forming layers of protection. Not only that, the inscriptions flashed, and a strand of vast crystal silk was born, and a surge of vast spirit surged. Those crystal silk were like the iron bones of the recitation students for millions of years, and that vast spirit was like a copious amount of righteous energy, transforming into fearless students that blocked in front of Kong Hongwu. Chapter 3658. The Immortal Palace's defensive weapon, the Imperial Shield, was indeed powerful, but obviously, the cost of using it was not small. Even a cultivator as strong as Kong Hongwu would not easily use it. Woo-woo! Kong Hongwu's Imperial Shield had just been born. Behind Kong Hongwu, the Heaven and Earth Essence Shi had also condensed into thin crystal filaments and formed a terrible vortex. Needless to say, the green-robed Xiaohua was also doing his best at this time. Rumble. Even as the Kunlun mirror condensed its arcane energy, hundreds of enormous thunderbolts still surged and pounced down. Unfortunately, under the thunderclap, hundreds of student auras were destroyed, but soon, even more crystalline threads surged out, and even more clanging students were formed. Xiaohua had already approached at this time, and the wishful steel staff had become hundreds of feet long. Countless noble chi also rushed down with a wishful steel staff. It's useless. Kong Hongwu smiled faintly, and still the same sentence. He really had a card up his sleeve. Namo Mithriya Buddha. Bodhi chanted a Buddhist mantra, and the primordial true water slammed into the defensive shield, swallowing it whole. Then the power of the Bodhi Buddhist seal came crashing down. Boom! With a loud bang, the defensive shield that Kong Hongwu thought was impenetrable actually caved in a corner. Kong Hongwu's face changed slightly. Dong! Like a knock on the door. The wishful steel staff fell, and the corner of the Imperial Shield shook violently, and the noble crystal filaments turned into ashes. Before the crystal filaments poured out of the Imperial Shield, suddenly, a huge hammer-like spiritual force appeared out of thin air and slammed into the shaking corner of the Imperial Shield. Shua! The power of Bodhi's seal was more powerful than the power of Bodhi's seal. Thousands of crystal filaments turned into nothingness. Kong Hongwu's face changed greatly. Spiritual hammer. Kong Hongwu almost gritted his teeth and cried out. Kong Hongwu's scream had just come out. Woo-woo. A strange sound and an aura that made Kong Hongwu frightened emerged from behind him. This time, the beam of light was like a flood and rushed to the other side of the Imperial Shield in a moment. There was almost no suspense. Under the seven-colored brilliance, the noble crystal filaments were hit by a big hole, and a cluster of brilliance desperately swallowed the crystal filaments and suddenly grew stronger. Kong Hongwu's expression changed dramatically. Damn it! Kong Hongwu cried out in a low voice and hurriedly raised his right hand. Boom! The seven-colored brilliance hit the defense shield, and the shield caved in deeply. Kong Hongwu's body flew out diagonally. Even with the combined efforts of the three heroes, the Imperial Shield was still not completely broken through. It's time to end this. Kong Hongwu sighed. He seemed to have lost his patience. His sub-body, which had lost its balance, waved its left hand. Kong Hongwu's sub-body shrank by 40% again. Waves of inscriptions flowed from his sub-body into the Royal Star Thrust. Rumble. The rumbling sound this time was much deeper than the previous ones, but it was also much more shocking than the previous ones. An aura comparable to a vortex flew out from Kong Hongwu's hand. Xiaohua clenched his teeth. He understood that Kong Hongwu's attack was aimed at him. If he wanted to fight to the death with Kong Hongwu, he would have to rely on Bodhi and Green Robe. While he was thinking, Green Robe and Bodhi were about to attack. A scene that shocked Xiaohua appeared. 3 streaks of starlight flashed in midair and disappeared immediately. The direction of the 3 streaks of starlight was him, Bodhi, and Green Robe. Fatal blow! Kong Hongwu wanted to kill the 3 heroes at the same time. The Royal Star Thrust was really powerful. Xiaohua had just seen the starlight, but the space in front of him instantly swelled up. Xiaohua turned pale with fright. His speed was really too fast. His thoughts moved anxiously. At the same time he used the ethereal steps, his left hand, which had been premeditated for a long time, resolutely waved out of thin air. Boom! The starlight was resplendent, and the meteors were like rain. Xiaohua felt a chill in his heart. It was just like when he saw Xue die for him in the past. His heart was filled with despair. At the same time, in front of Bodhi and green-robed Xiao Hua, similar streaks of starlight flashed, and two different kinds of heart-wrenching pain came from their two yuan spirits. Bodhi's golden body was hit, and a large hole several meters wide appeared. The overbearing inscription quickly swallowed up the broken golden body, and Bodhi's compassionate eyes were filled with pain. Green-robe Xiao Hua's nascent soul was even more miserable. The Kunlun mirror was unable to block the star shuttle in time. As the star shuttle passed through, half of the nascent soul's body disappeared, and pale golden blood gushed out from the remains of the nascent soul. However, Xiao Hua had no time to lower his head to look at the huge black hole in front of his right chest, nor did he have time to care about the life and death of the two primordial spirits. He waved his left hand, and a thick black chi flickered. Black flames surged out from his arm, and a pitch-black demonic saber appeared in his hand. With the appearance of the demonic saber, a kind of world-destroying aura quickly spread throughout the entire space. Kong Hongwu was stunned at first, then shocked, and then laughed loudly, as if he had seen the most ridiculous thing in the world. Xiao Hua, I'm afraid you've run out of tricks. In this demon refining pot spirit array, you actually dared to use a demon artifact. You're really tired of living. Sure enough, as soon as the demon artifact appeared, the whole space shook. Not to mention the demon refining pot. Even the righteous chi in the surrounding space rumbled and surged. Unfortunately, before Kong Hongwu could see the demon refining pot's power, before he could finish speaking, he saw Xiao Hua's body burst with thousands of demon heads, instantly drowning him. The dark demon saber resolutely waved in midair, and Kong Hongwu's vision suddenly went dark. All he could see was the roaring and ferocious demon heads, flashing blood-red eyes, pouncing on him. In the space, a saber chi that was so dark that even light couldn't penetrate directly chopped into the defense of Xiao Hua, Bodhi, and the three green-robed heroes, which was broken through by the joint attack of Xiao Hua, Bodhi, and the three green-robed heroes, splitting Kong Hongwu's subbody, which had already shrunk to a size of several hundred feet, into two halves. Illo, a roaring primordial spirit that was as solid as a real person flew out from Kong Hongwu's subbody. This primordial spirit was the same as Kong Hongwu's subbody and physical body, now split into two halves. Moreover, without waiting for this primordial spirit to escape, the demon saber surged with black chi, which had already drowned this primordial spirit along with its physical body. Just as the demon saber killed Kong Hongwu, the demon refining pot under the huge whirlpool immediately separated a multicolored light from the pot's body, carrying a righteous chi pillar that was thousands of feet high, and directly hit Xiao Hua's golden body. Boom! A loud sound rang out. Even though Xiao Hua's golden body had been tempered for a long time, under this attack, it collapsed as easily as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. A small half of his golden body instantly disappeared without a trace. Xiao Hua's golden body didn't disappear, but when it disappeared, the demonic chi in his body uncontrollably gushed out. Turning around, a huge demonic god, Xiao Hua, once again appeared in the space. His originally unconscious eyes suddenly opened, and his pupils were completely bloodshot and bloodthirsty. The demons around him screamed at the top of their lungs, trying their best to break out of the black chi's shackles. The demonic chi that Xiao Hua had been suppressing after entering the Jade Pavilion finally broke out at this moment. Boom, boom! The righteous chi in the entire space began to boil. Pa, 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 pa. Sound could be heard from the places where the demonic chi was exposed. The demonic chi and the righteous chi were entangled in one place, and they were frantically trying to kill each other. Roar! A roar resounded through the space. The demonic saber emitted a saber cry, as if it had seen an irreconcilable enemy. A pitch-black demonic shadow carrying Xiao Hua's demonic body slashed towards the demon refining gourd. Courting death, the green-robed Xiao Hua groaned in midair. However, he understood in his heart that if Xiao Hua's state of mind wasn't good enough, let alone getting close to him, he might even be swallowed by the demonic saber in the end. Glancing at the two imperial equipment with old-fashioned names not far away, the green-robed Xiao Hua reluctantly patted his hand. The Kunlun mirror emitted a faint brilliance and rolled towards the imperial equipment. Whether it was the imperial star stab, the imperial shield, or even Kong Hongwu's Chinquan pouch, they were all sucked into the Kunlun mirror. At this moment, the suction force within the whirlpool of the demon refining gourd suddenly increased greatly, dragging the green-robed Xiao Hua into the whirlpool. The green-robed Xiao Hua was greatly alarmed. He hastily opened his mouth and spat out a thin thread of spiritual fire, blocking the front of his body. Then, the Kunlun mirror also emitted a 7-colored brilliance, doing its best to resist the suction force. Evil demons, greedy hearts. Heaven's wrath. Bodhi was also powerless. It was unknown whether he was talking about Xiao Hua, the green-robed Xiao Hua, or the demonic saber. Just as Bodhi's voice fell, the suction force within the whirlpool also took effect on Bodhi, dragging him into the whirlpool. Bodhi's face was filled with astonishment. The Buddhist light around his body flourished, as if it was resisting the suction force. "Little monk," the green-robed Xiao Hua beside him called out in a strange tone, "let's not talk about heaven's wrath or Namo Mithria first. It's better to control your own life and death first. Fellow Taoist Yu seems to be a bit troublesome. Otherwise, the demon refining gourd's whirlpool wouldn't have such a suction force on us. Oh, right, I forgot to tell you. The primordial true water in the clear water bottle can resist the demon refining gourd. Namomytha." Bodhi's damaged, golden body flickered like a candle in the wind. When he heard the green-robed Xiao Hua's words, he hastily waved his hand. A wave of primordial true water rushed into the air, protecting both Bodhi and the green-robed Xiao Hua. Then he looked worriedly at the huge demonic saber in the air and sighed. If fellow Taoist Yu wasn't greedy, why would he raise a demonic spirit? If he didn't have a demonic spirit, why would he fear the demonic saber? When fellow Taoist Yu entered the Yaotai Mountain, he was affected by the massacre inside the formation. Although he wanted to keep a low profile, he ultimately couldn't. Now, fellow Taoist Yu is being devoured by the demonic saber. Our future is bleak. Perhaps. How could the green-robed Xiao Hua not know? However, at this moment, the two primordial spirits were seriously injured by the star control stab. It would be difficult for them to even protect themselves, let alone rescue Xiao Hua. If I guess correctly, fellow Taoist Yu was injured by the demon refining gourd. Then the demonic saber seized the opportunity to take control of his physical body. We'll just have to wait for fellow Taoist Yu to wake up. As he spoke, the demonic saber had already arrived in front of the demon refining gourd. With a pop sound, like an oil lamp exploding, a golden flower flew out of the demon refining gourd. Whoosh! Bands of righteous chi and spiritual chi of heaven and earth rushed into the golden flower. Then, a heavenly general in golden armor appeared from the golden flower. However, this heavenly general in golden armor didn't have a clear face. He held a coiling dragon spear in his hand and thrust it towards the demonic saber. Chapter 36:59. Boom! With a loud explosion, the coiling dragon spear and the golden armor heavenly general were split in half by the demonic saber. The saber mark continued to extend and fell towards the demon refining gourd. Wong wong! The demon refining gourd suddenly trembled and released thousands of clouds and lights. Boom boom! With two consecutive sounds, one hit the demonic saber and the other hit the demon god Xiao Hua. Ka ka! The lights blocked the demonic saber. However, where the demonic chi fell, the lights condensed like glass and shattered into pieces. The demon god Xiao Hua was not so lucky. The demonic chi around his body was destroyed, and hundreds of demons were destroyed. A big hole was pierced through his body. Goo goo. Just as the demon refining gourd let out another rumbling sound, the demonic saber suddenly made a strange sound. Then, the entire demonic saber turned into a waterfall and rushed towards the huge and vast whirlpool above its head. Rumble. The entire space let out a loud rumbling sound. The demon refining gourd also moved. The light caught up with the demonic saber and landed on the whirlpool. Then, the mouth of the demon refining gourd strangely produced a huge shadow that covered the entire whirlpool. The light of the whirlpool was extremely beautiful, like a 9-colored snail. The huge light shell was pulled flat and was about to fall into the demon refining gourd. The demonic saber also accelerated, and a lightless saber mark instantly landed on a corner of the whirlpool. There was no sound at all, and the whirlpool was cut down by 30%. The demons on the demonic saber laughed maniacally, and their demonic chi soared into the sky. Before the light of the demon refining gourd could reach it, it wrapped around dozens of Yuan and pulled them into the demonic saber. Woo! The demon refining gourd let out an ear-piercing sound. The remaining whirlpool in the wind inconceivably fell into the fist-sized demon refining gourd. Then, the demon refining gourd soared into the sky and flew towards the starry sky. Roar! The demonic saber actually continued to fight, and its demonic chi surged again, wanting to chase and kill. Boom! The demon refining gourd suddenly shot out a 5-colored light. The demonic saber was afraid of this light. Just as it was about to mobilize its demonic chi to surround and suppress it, the light hit Xiao Hua's middle dantian. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. A bleak sound of falling flowers was born from the devil god Xiao Hua's body. Strands of noble chi moved upon hearing the wind. This time, it didn't bombard the demonic chi, but instead moisturize and quietly invade the devil god Xiao Hua's body. Swoosh, swoosh. Like a trickle in the sound of water, golden, scarlet, and navy, 3 kinds of brilliance uncontrollably emerged from Xiao Hua's body. The blood-like black flame and the ink-like demonic chi hastily withdrew into Xiao Hua's body. Even the distant demonic saber let out a mournful cry and hastily withdrew into Xiao Hua's left hand like a waterfall. In just the blink of an eye, Xiao Hua's demonic body degenerated and returned to a slender Taoist cultivator. His tightly closed eyes opened, and 2 wisps of clear chi emerged from his eyes. Raising his head to look at the sky, a slightly proud voice sounded, "2 immortal friends, why aren't you hurrying back to your positions?" Namo Methriel Buddha. This poor monk thanks immortal friend Confucian cultivator. Bodhi hastily withdrew the innate primordial water and landed on the top of Xiao Hua's head. As soon as he entered the Naiwan Palace, he immediately hid inside the exquisite pagoda. "All right, I also have to thank a mortal friend." The green-robed Xiao Hua shrugged and also landed on the top of Xiao Hua's head. With a somewhat unwilling expression, he said, "But I's home is now in a mess. How can I rest?" How could Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua not know what the green-robed Xiao Hua was thinking? He faintly replied, "Immortal friend Yuji is currently unconscious. You all are no match for the demonic saber. Our main bodies can only be temporarily controlled by this little one. However, immortal friend can rest assured, this little one will not make the main bodies do anything. As for immortal friend Yuji has already taken the heaven-mending pill, and the medicinal power in his dantian has already taken effect. If immortal friend still wants to stay in the main body, you can go to his dantian and stimulate the medicinal power. This little one will still send down the 5 chi righteous thunder to help immortal friend recover his nascent soul." "Good." The green-robed Xiao Hua stood up and bowed, then disappeared into Xiao Hua's body. At this moment, a huge kacha sound came from above the heads of the primordial spirits. At the place where the devil refining gourd disappeared, layer after layer of cracks fell like thunder. The entire starry sky began to collapse, and a kind of heaven destroying and earth exterminating aura swept through the entire space. Not good. This great formation is about to be sealed. Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua was shocked and anxiously said, "This little one will control the main body and rush out of the great formation." Good. Several primordial spirits all agreed. Come. The sound of a sword suddenly rang out. The vast chi within the great formation gathered into Xiao Hua's body. Thousands of sword lights were born from the surface of Xiao Hua's body. In a moment, Xiao Hua had already turned into a huge sword and rushed into the chaotic starry sky great formation against the overwhelming desolate aura. Outside the great formation, as Xiao Hua expected, the huge water-type heavenly general was already standing outside the cave with a huge sword in his hand. At this moment, he heard the rumbling sound coming from the cave and waves of destructive aura rushing out from the mountain peak. His expression changed greatly. What is going on? Kong Hanwu and that Taisher Zhanron. What the hell are they doing? The heavenly general's face showed doubt and anger. Even if there's a gap between the two, it's impossible for them to have the guts to ruin her senior's important matter. The situation could not get worse, only the worst. In less than half a cup of tea's time, a huge boom sound rang out. On the mountain peak, the entire mountain peak disappeared with a bang. A gorgeous brilliance soared into the sky. Even the heavenly general was unable to see what was inside the brilliance. That suffocating aura flashed and disappeared. How is this possible? This scorching sun great formation still hasn't ended. That thing, how could it leave by itself? Once that thing left, the scorching sun great formation would collapse by itself. The heavenly general turned pale with fright and muttered to himself, "Damn Kong Hanwu. He actually dared to ruin this daddy's work. If her senior blames this daddy will eat you alive." While speaking, the heavenly general did not dare to be negligent. With a clap of his hand, a four-colored brilliance rushed out from the water-formed body and chased up into the sky. Boom! The huge body collapsed. Countless amounts of water fell onto the foot of the mountain and slowly flowed into the deep pool. At this moment, the huge rocks on the mountain peak rolled down the mountain slope. In the direction the heavenly general was looking at, within the star formation that was like a scorching sun, there were monstrous flames. Clusters of flames of various colors were like the grass on an ordinary mountain peak, swaying with the wind. Even the ground inside the star formation was covered with layers of fire carpets. From afar, within the undulating flames, there were actually endless mountain peaks. These mountain peaks were also formed by flames. Some of these mountain peaks were straight to the sky, while others were grotesquely shaped, and so on. If not for the heat of the flames distorting the air within the star formation, even if someone accidentally entered, they would never have thought that this was a world of fire. After all, between the mountain peaks, the faint streams of fire still flickered with a dark green brilliance. The gurgling sound of water was also incessant. Some people would believe it if they said it was a celestial scenery. However, at this moment, rumbling sounds were incessantly coming from one of the mountain peaks. It was very abrupt among the monotonous whistling sounds of the flames within the star formation. Bang! Immediately after, there was a loud sound. From a place on the mountain peak, a huge human-shaped fire shadow rushed into the air. A faint blue light followed closely behind and hit the human-shaped fire shadow. The fire shadow immediately solidified, and the red fire shadow turned black and red. Then, a fist of a few feet in size rushed out from the mountain peak and hit the black and red fire shadow. Shwa! The fire shadow suddenly turned into fist-sized fire crystals and fell from the air. As the fire crystals fell, two figures flew out from the mountain peak and stood majestically in the air. The one in front was Zhang Daoran, and the one behind was Sun Kong Shangren. Sun Kong Shangren smiled and said, "Brother Daoran, your ice sealing technique has reached the point of perfection. It is very suitable for this formation. This bullshit fire giant is the bane of others, but in your hands, it is our lucky star. Zhang Daoran chuckled slightly, but there was some worry between his eyebrows. He turned his head and looked at where the two came from, but he didn't speak. Sun Kong Shangren waved his hand and said, "Fellow cultivators, whose turn is it? Hurry up and collect the fire crystals." As Sun Kong Shangren's voice fell, a dozen gold core cultivators flew out from the mountain peak behind them. These gold core cultivators were flashing with a faint brilliance, trying their best to resist the flames of the star formation. They all flew to the place where the fire crystals fell and searched carefully. After a while, each of them took a few fire crystals and flew into the sky. They bowed and said, "Thank you for your kindness." "Ha! No need to be so polite." Sun Kong Shangren was very happy. He flicked his sleeves and said, "Inform the fellow cultivators behind to be ready at any time. If there is anything good, wait for me to inform you." "Yes, Junior understands." The dozen gold core cultivators flew back to the mountain peak. After a while, more than 200 cultivators flew out from behind the mountain peak. They were either gold core cultivators or nascent soul cultivators. They stood in the air in a very orderly manner, without a trace of disorder. Seeing Zhang Daren's worry, Sun Kong Shangren also sighed deeply. He looked behind him and said in a low voice, "Brother Daoran, you don't have to look anymore. It's been almost a year. If Brother Xiao was fine, he would have caught up with us a long time ago." Alas, Zhang Daoran withdrew his gaze and also sighed deeply. He replied, "How could I not know? But I always felt that a strange person like Brother Xiao would not easily fall on this Yaotai mountain. I always want to see a miracle." Miracle? That's a picture painted by the Confucian cultivators for us Taoist cultivators. Sun Kong Shangren was disdainful and complained, "Actually, I don't want to criticize you, but you should have pulled Brother Xiao out of the stone formation at that time." "How could I not want to?" Zhang Daren's face was filled with regret. But he was unwilling to come out and said that he wanted to save people inside. "How could I delay him? I originally thought that if he didn't come out, I would go in to look for him again. Who knew that the entrance of the star formation could only be left but not entered? It would be even more difficult to find the entrance again." Chapter 3660. Brother Daoran, I was wrong. I shouldn't blame you. Seeing Zhang Daoran so regretful, Venerable Sun Kong hurriedly said with a smile, "Everyone has their own luck. Brother Xiao is also his own choice. He can't blame anyone. You shouldn't blame yourself too much, otherwise it will affect your Dao heart. Moreover, although Brother Xiao can't be seen anymore, his heart or his thoughts, didn't he leave behind? I didn't say it very well. In short, I feel like Brother Xiao is by my side." Venerable Sun Kong actually took the initiative to admit that he was wrong. How was this the Venerable Sun Kong he knew before entering Yaotai Mountain? Zhang Daoran smiled and nodded. "You are right. Thinking about the scheming between you and me, I really feel childish, like a 3 or 4-year-old child. Really boring. Look at now. Our words and actions do not go against our hearts. We have given our trust to each other. This feeling is really solid. In the words of the secular world, even sleeping can wake up naturally." Indeed, Venerable Sun Kong looked at the 200 cultivators behind him. Previously, I only felt that the group of cultivators trembling in fear in front of me was my prestige. But now, I feel that it is only their fear of me. It is not sincere admiration and worship. Now, although these cultivators had never sworn loyalty to his little brother, their gratitude was even more heartwarming than any oath. This was something that came from the bottom of their hearts. I also feel especially at ease. Brother Xiao, I am afraid he is not younger than us. If he did not have thousands of years of experience, how could he have so many gains? Compared to what he has seen and heard, I feel that my years have been wasted. Zhang Daoran sighed again. Brother Daoran, there's no need to be like this. Venerable Sun Kong smiled bitterly. We are just concentrating on cultivation. Although we are old, Some views are not necessarily correct, and the amount of experience we have is also little. We can't just ruin ourselves like this, right? Sigh, no matter what, if cultivation is not counted, I feel that there is a big gap between me and Brother Shao. Zhang Daoran said as he looked back again. Venerable Sun Kong was quite distressed, and also glanced this sweep didn't matter. But Sun Kong raised his brows and said urgently, "Not good. There are fire crows and flying dragons attacking. Brother Daoran, I'll leave the wyvern in front to you. Leave the rest to me and my fellow Taoists." Good. These fire crows and flying dragons aren't as strong as the flame giants. I can't deal with them alone. Zhang Daoran naturally understood. He nodded and agreed. His Taoist robe flapped, and his figure flew into the sky. He slapped his hand on his head again. Whoa! A huge wind whistled. A huge blue hand that looked like it was made of crystal expanded to 100 feet in size and grabbed towards the distance. Exalted Master Sun Kong said loudly. Fellow Taoists in the fourth group set up the formation to lure the enemy. The second and first groups will surround and kill the enemy on the left. The fifth and sixth groups will seal off the right. Golden Core cultivators set up formations at low altitudes to kill the injured fire crows and fire dragons. Yes, we will do as you say. The group of cultivators responded in unison. Looking at the fire crows and fire dragons that blotted out the sky, there was no panic on their faces. Each of them very skillfully arranged according to Sun Kong's prior arrangements, setting up the formation to prepare for battle. In a moment, the wind blew above the mountain and flames fluttered. Countless rumbling sounds rose and fell. After fighting for a full hour, the sounds finally stopped. Looking at the cultivators, although they were exhausted and had suffered many casualties, their eyes flashed with a strange light. It was as if they had long understood from this joint battle that if they didn't work as one and didn't share weal and woe, they wouldn't have been able to reach here. Even the Crimson Star Formation and Bright Moon Formation would have left their corpses behind. Quick, look, a shooting star. At this moment, a Golden Core cultivator with a weak cultivation suddenly shouted, pointing at the distant horizon. Everyone was delighted. After all, in the Crimson Star Formation and Bright Moon Formation, the appearance of a meteor was a sign of a rare treasure. In the first two formations, everyone was very lucky. They were the closest to the meteor and found the trace of the rare treasure early. Moreover, everyone worked together to resist the attacks of other cultivators before obtaining the rare treasure. This time, the meteor that appeared in the Scorching Sun Formation was far away, but it was obvious that it was the location of the last treasure, the pure Yang ancestor. If it was before, once they heard the warning of this Golden Core cultivator, all the cultivators would definitely rush out like a swarm of bees. Who would care about others? They wouldn't even forget to kill others on the way. After all, it was the pure Yang ancestor. Although they didn't know what it was also the last treasure of Star-Lord Palace. It was probably more precious than the green abyss dragon saliva and the cold ghost skull. Let's go. Seeing that the cultivators were waiting for his order, Exalted Master Sun Kong smiled slightly and said, "When we get this pure Yang ancestor, our trip will be complete." Good. The cultivators all applauded and flew into the distance in an orderly formation. When all the cultivators flew away, they saw that behind the fiery clouds in the sky, there was a slight gap, and a beautiful face with a little worry and a hint of joy appeared. Wasn't it the guardian of the Scorching Sun Formation, Sun Chicken Ant Su Chiron? Yes, the cultivators of Dao Sect have learned how to unite. With this seed of mutual support, Dao Sect will not be destroyed. Kong Hongwu's plan. I'm afraid it will fail this time. Gusta Chiron prays in a low voice. I just don't know. Who is this Xiao Hua? How could he have such a great influence on Zhang Daoran and Exalted Master Sun Kong? But after listening to Exalted Master Sun Kong, I'm afraid this person has already died in the star formation. Speaking of this, Gusa Chiron looked at the meteor in the distance again and shook her head slightly. Unfortunately, the Scorching Sun Formation is not something nascent soul cultivators can break through. If it was the star formation of Yaotai Mountain, I could still be merciful, but here I am powerless. The Immortal Palace, what are they planning? Do they really want all these Dao sect cultivators to die here? What a sin. While speaking, Gusu Chiron's eyes flashed with a sigh. She waved her hand, and the clouds moved. A faint voice came from the depths of the clouds. I can only hope that you can hold on for a year. The meteor streaked across the sky. Finally, with a loud boom, a huge hole appeared in a huge mountain of flames. Then the meteor shattered. Layers of inscriptions rushed out like a swarm of bees. Waves of awe-inspiring energy rotated in the air. A jade box emitted multicolored rays of light and floated in the volcano. As soon as the jade box appeared, the inscriptions changed under the influence of the light. One by one, the inscriptions quickly decomposed and combined, turning into a wave of fire that rushed down from the volcano. A small part of the inscriptions rushed into the sky like a fountain, covering the space hundreds of feet above the volcano. Then, the entire volcano trembled violently, and all the inscriptions disappeared in the void. Aside from the flames of the volcano and the clouds above the volcano, there was nothing strange. In the time it took to finish a meal, dozens of rays of light crossed the sea of fire and flew closer. Two ferocious divine senses swept over at the same time. One of them landed on the jade box and immediately withdrew, while the other continued to explore the side of the volcano. Several lights landed in front of the volcano, and the first person to appear was a nascent soul cultivator wearing an emperor's robe. This cultivator looked to be in his 30s, with thick eyebrows and big eyes. He looked very mighty, especially the thick arrogance in his eyes, which made people want to retreat. Behind this emperor was the person who withdrew his divine sense. He was only a few feet tall and was the childlike Huoda Jinren. Huoda Jinren's eyes revealed a trace of greed, but when he glanced at the nascent soul cultivator in front of him, his face immediately changed to a humble expression. Huoda Jinren was also a mighty late nascent soul cultivator, but in front of this nascent soul cultivator, his innate temperament was far inferior. Needless to say, even Huoda Jinren himself felt ashamed of his own inferiority. Fellow Zhaixing, Huoda Jinren smiled apologetically. Inside this jade box, I'm afraid the last treasure of this jade pavilion gathering is the pure Yang ancestor. The previous two treasures appeared too coincidentally. They were actually close to Zhang Daoran and Master Sun Kong, so they took the lead. Now that luck has brought them to you, the last treasure will be yours. This nascent soul cultivator, whose temperament was comparable to an emperor, was naturally the Zhaixing Zi mentioned by Kong Hongwu. Zhaixing Zi's face showed a trace of a strategist's smile. He looked at the jade box in the distance, and then looked at Huoda Jinren, saying, "Fellow Huoda is right. If we can get our hands on this jade box, it will be the end of the Yaotai gathering if nothing unexpected happens. Fellow Taoist, don't worry, I always do what I say. If I can't use this pure Yang ancestor, I will definitely give it to you, just like how Sun Kong Shangren gave the cold ghost gallbladder to Zhang Daoran. Yes, thank you, fellow Taoist." Huoda Jinren's face showed a smile. He looked around and didn't see anything strange, but his heart was a little worried. His mission this time was naturally not the pure Yang ancestor, but to kill Xiaohua. Unfortunately, he had been searching for nearly a year, but there was no trace of Xiaohua. Even if he wanted to kill him, he couldn't. He couldn't explain it to Kong Hongwu of Star Lord Palace. Zhang Daoran and Sun Kong Shangren led nearly 200 cultivators, most of whom were Yuanying realm cultivators. Zhaixing Zi and Huoda Jinren led dozens of cultivators, most of whom were Yuanying realm cultivators. The rest of the cultivators were led by 3 or 4 middle-stage Yuanying realm cultivators. However, most of them were Jindan realm cultivators, and their strength was much weaker. The rest of the cultivators who were not in these 10 groups were all Yuanying realm cultivators. They were proud and aloof. Even if they gained nothing, they did not want to join hands with others. Chapter 3661. Of the nearly 700 nascent soul cultivators, more than half of them had perished in the Yaotai meeting. It was far more than the previous Jade Pavilion gathering. As for the Jindan cultivators, they were even more miserable. Those below the middle stage of the Jindan stage were basically dead, and only 40% of the late stage of the Jindan stage were left. These Jindan cultivators didn't dare to break through the formation by themselves. They all followed the nascent soul cultivators and didn't dare to leave. Now, these Jindan cultivators only had one wish in their hearts, and that was to quickly end this damned Jade Pavilion gathering. As soon as the Dragon Gate opened, they would definitely be the first to rush out regardless of everything and never come to Jade Mountain again. Even if they were beaten to death, they would never come again. In fact, the Taoist cultivators were indeed tragic, but there was a big gap between this and what Kong Hongwu had imagined. The nascent souls of these nascent soul cultivators who had died were really not commensurate with the large investment of the Immortal Palace. Most of the credit should be given to Xiao Hua for the Dao cultivators to be able to survive. Not to mention that Xiao Hua restrained Star-Lord Palace. Not to mention that Xiao Hua killed 3 Star-Lords. Not to mention that Xiao Hua personally saved so many nascent soul and Jinan cultivators. Xiao Hua was able to use his Dao heart to move Sun Kong Shangren and Zhang Daoran, which was already the greatest thing. This kind of move was imperceptible, like the spring wind and rain, causing Sun Kong Shangren and Zhang Daoran to go from hostility and suspicion to mutual recognition and cooperation. Not only did the two of them not die, but they also protected dozens of nascent soul cultivators around them from dying. Influenced by them, the other nascent soul cultivators who were also suspicious began to follow suit. These nearly 10 groups of cultivators gradually formed and fought together in the bloody storm of the past year. Of course, the most important thing was that Xiao Hua killed Kong Hongwu. Kong Hongwu's plot to kill all the nascent soul cultivators in the Scorching Sun formation couldn't be carried out. Otherwise, even if Zhai Xingzi and the others came here, they still wouldn't be able to survive. Fire de Jimren looked around and whispered, "Fellow Zhai Xingzi, let's hurry up and do it. This is the rhythm of the early bird getting the first bite." All right. Zhai Xingzi readily accepted the suggestion and waved his hand. "Fellow Taoists, let's surround this volcano. First, we'll act according to our previous formation and attack together. Whoever gets the jade box first, regardless of whether it's me or fellow Taoist Huda, will give that fellow Taoist something of equal value. Second, even if we can't get it for now, we'll be able to block the cultivators who come here in the future. Yes, we'll listen to fellow Taoist Zhai Xing's orders." The dozens of nascent soul cultivators responded in unison. They moved their bodies and surrounded the entire volcano in a short while. At the same time, when everyone had just surrounded him, several divine senses had already swept over from afar. They were the other surviving Dao sect cultivators, including Zhang Daoran, Sun Kong, and the others. "Do it." Zhai Xingzi's face turned serious. He knew that he didn't have much time left, so he waved his hand and ordered. Buzz, buzz. Waves of magic treasures rumbled. The dozens of nascent soul cultivators each activated their natal magic treasures. The brilliance of the magic treasures was exceptionally dazzling, completely enveloping the entire volcano. The originally blazing volcano suddenly froze at this moment, as if it was suddenly frozen by a cold wind. The inscriptions floating in the flames also stopped in midair, like falling leaves frozen in a fiery red crystal. Boom! All kinds of magic treasures landed, causing a huge tremor. The mountain that was originally condensed from flames was suddenly hit until it shrunk. The full inscriptions melted layer by layer and were annihilated piece by piece under the power of the magic treasures. It was as if boiling water was poured onto snow. There was no resistance at all. Great! Zhai Xingzi was overjoyed. He activated his magic treasures, and the multicolored light around him shone brightly. As he reached out his hand, a dragon-shaped brilliance rushed towards the fire mountain. In the blink of an eye, it was about to land on the jade box. But at this moment, the corner of Huada's eyes twitched slightly, as if he had sensed something. However, he smiled faintly. His eyes flashed with a hint of mockery, but he didn't say anything. Ka. The sound of a rat gnawing on a table leg at night rang out. Layer after layer of inscriptions suddenly appeared in front of the cultivators. Each of the inscriptions emitted a solemn sound. When the sound gathered together, it actually caused the nascent soul cultivators to become absent-minded. Following the appearance of the inscriptions, strands of noble spirit condensed into the shape of crystal threads rushed out of the void and landed on the inscriptions. The inscriptions were like budding flower buds. The inscriptions that formed chapters were like rows of flower walls. However, the flower buds were fatal, and the flower walls were engraved with the names of the deceased. Boom, boom, boom. As the inscriptions exploded one by one, the waves of energy instantly drowned all the cultivators. Zhai Xingzi's cloud hand also couldn't escape the calamity. With a boom, inch by inch, it broke apart. Not good. Zhai Xingzi shouted. How could this happen? When Zhang Daoran and the others took the jade box, it didn't appear like this. Zhai Xingzi was shocked. He hurriedly retreated. At the same time, he activated his divine sense. Thousands of starlight appeared from the top of his head and turned into a huge hand that grabbed the exploding inscriptions. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The huge hand fell. The inscriptions around the volcano also emitted a roaring sound. The noble spirit crystal threads exploded with great power. As soon as the huge hand touched the inscriptions, it was immediately blown apart by the noble spirit crystal threads. Fellow Taoist Huada, come and help me. Zhai Xingzi saw that Huada Zhai Xingzi was still activating an ordinary magic treasure. He couldn't help but frown and hurriedly called out. How could Huada Zhai Xingzi be willing to help? But now he had to act. Huada Zhai Xingzi shouted, Fellow Taoist Zhai Xing, don't worry. I will help you. As he spoke, Huada Zhai Xingzi also activated a huge hand that was condensed from flames. Its position was exactly opposite of Zhai Xingzi's. Of course, Huada Zhai Xingzi's hand was not as big as Zhai Xingzi's. The moment it touched the inscriptions, it immediately collapsed. At this moment, a nascent soul cultivator suddenly screamed. Above the volcano, a vast white gas rushed out and covered the nascent soul that had lost its physical body. It instantly dragged the nascent soul into the volcano and disappeared. Puff, puff. After a nascent soul cultivator died, the other nascent soul cultivators also endured the most difficult stage. They all activated their magic power and used their divine sense to escape from the attack of the inscriptions. When these cultivators came out, the terrifying inscriptions gradually disappeared as if they had never existed. The volcano that had been hit until it lost its light was now waving its fangs and brandishing its claws. As he looked at the group of cultivators with ghastly pale faces and the damaged magic treasures in their hands, a bitter taste arose in Zhai Xingzi's mouth. He understood in his heart that this last treasure was absolutely not as easy to obtain as the previous two. Zhai Xingzi wanted to give up, but he couldn't say it. This was not only a matter of face, but also a matter of life and death. Even if he didn't take this treasure, the Jade Pavilion Gatherings Dragon Gate would not open. They still had to stay here. Ha ha ha. Sun Kong Shangren's mocking voice came like a wave. You dare to go to the volcano without 3 inches? You're just a bunch of useless people. Yet you want to covet the 3 great treasures? Are you defeated? If you can't, then quickly move aside and let this old man take it. Sun Kong Shangren's words really made Zhai Xingzi blush because these were the words he mocked Sun Kong Shangren when he first failed to take the treasure. However, Sun Kong Shangren then successfully took the jade box with Zhang Daoran. Now, Sun Kong Shangren was just returning the original words. Sun Kong Shangren's voice had already arrived, but he was still far away. Huada Zhai Xingzi heard it, and his heart tightened. The first people he found were Sun Kongshangren and Zhang Daoren. Unfortunately, Zhang Daoren didn't care about Hua de Zhai Xingzi joining, but Sun Kongshangren was extremely disgusted with Hua de Zhai Xingzi. That kind of disgust was undisguised on his face. Hua de Zhai Xingzi was also a late Yuanying stage cultivator. How would he bear this? After a few words, he flicked his sleeves and left. In his heart, he was extremely contemptuous of this group of people who were only a few dozen at that time. But what made Hua de Zhai Xingzi surprised was that more and more people gathered around Zhang Daoren and Sun Kongshangren, and more star formations were broken. Just as Hua de Zhai Xingzi was about to coldly watch these two people being killed by Star-Lord Palace, they unexpectedly took two treasures. At this time, Hua de Zhai Xingzi almost suspected that Kong Hongwu of Star-Lord Palace had changed his nature and began to favor the Taoist cultivators. However, whether it was the Crimson Star Great Formation or the Bright Moon Great Formation, the casualties of the Taoist cultivators didn't seem to be his guess. Therefore, Hua de Zhai Xingzi slightly shifted his target from killing Xiao Hua to the treasures. As for Zhai Xingzi, to be honest, Hua de Zhai Xingzi just wanted to make use of him. When Xiao Hua appeared, or when Xiao Hua was fighting with him for the treasures, he could borrow Zhai Xingzi's power to kill Xiao Hua. Zhai Xingzi was a little embarrassed. He looked at the jade box on the volcano in the distance, and then looked at the group of cultivators who were greatly injured. He thought about whether to continue or not. After all, before Sun Kongshangren and the others arrived, they still had enough time to attack again. Fellow Zhai Xing, what are you hesitating for? If we don't attack now, when Zhang Daoren and the others arrive, how will we have a chance? Hua de Zhai Xingzi urged from his side. Zhai Xingzi nodded. Fellow Zhai Xingzi is right. Previously, I didn't succeed. Now it's up to you. When Hua de Zhai Xingzi heard this, he felt like vomiting blood. However, what Zhai Xingzi said was also right. Even if it was a round, it would still be his turn to attack. Hua de Zhai Xingzi smiled. He already had a plan in mind. He nodded and said, Fellow Zhai Xingzi is right. I also want to lead everyone to succeed. Unfortunately, my life source magic treasure was stolen by that bastard Xiao Hua. I only managed to stay alive by fleeing with all my might. Today, even if I use all of my magic power, I still won't be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with fellow Zhai Xingzi. How about this, fellow Zhai Xingzi? We don't have much time. This time, we must succeed in one strike. There can't be the slightest mistake. I'll be the main force, and fellow Zhai Xing will be the support. Why don't we attack together? Chapter 3662. After listening to Hua de Immortal's suggestion, Zhai Xingzi pondered. Hua de Immortal had said this before, and he had already regarded Xiao Hua as the scum of Taoism. Since Hua de Immortal did not have his natal magic treasure, his supernatural power would naturally be weakened. He would not be of much help. If it was before, he could take a few steps back and let Hua de Immortal try. But this time, he really did not have much time. Even if he had some grudges in his heart, he could only compromise. Okay. Zhai Xingzi nodded and pointed to the opposite side. Hua de Immortal will go to the opposite side. We will attack from both sides. Who is it? At this moment, Zhai Xingzi's eyes suddenly overflowed with faint starlight. He raised his head and looked at the clouds that were covered by flames in the distance. Between the two clouds, half of a face that was either angry or happy flashed past. Ah! Zhai Xingzi's heart felt as if it was struck by lightning. Instantly, his body became light, and he could not breathe. It was as if thousands of mountains and ravines were stuffed into his chest. This face is so familiar. This person is so attractive. This person, where have I seen him before? Zhai Xingzi's mind was turned upside down. He tried his best to find a memory of this half of the face. Unfortunately, no matter how hard he tried, he could not find the origin of this half of the face. However, the bitterness in his heart clearly told him that he knew this person, and this person was deeply engraved in his heart. fellow immortal, Zhaixingzi? Huada Immortal did not see that half of the face, but he was a little panicked. He naturally knew that the scorching sun array was guarded by the Celestial Lords of Celestial Lord Palace. He did not know who the Celestial Lord above the clouds was, but he had a vague feeling that this Celestial Lord was probably Kong Hongwu himself or someone sent by Kong Hongwu to check on his performance. Therefore, he hurriedly reminded him, "What's wrong with you?" "No, nothing." Zhaixingzi's heart could not help but beat wildly. He could not calm down for a moment. This was rare for a cultivator in the late stage of the nascent soul stage. Zhaixingzi's answer was somewhat perfunctory. Zhaixingzi frowned. Huada Immortal was a little relieved. He smiled and said, "If there's nothing, we will prepare to set up the formation now." "Okay." Zhaixingzi was still a little absent-minded. Huada, Zhenren muttered in his heart. He looked at the clouds in the sky and flew to the other side of the volcano. Behind the clouds, Gusu Chiron's face was red and her hands were trembling. There was a strange look in her eyes and her heart was pounding. Who is this cultivator from the Taoist sect? How did he discover me? Even a cultivator of the 5th grade of essence energy wouldn't be able to notice my appearance. How can he see me at a glance? Moreover, why is his appearance so familiar? How could I have such a deep impression of a Taoist cultivator? Gusu Chiron couldn't help but blush at this thought. She was just as surprised as Zhaixingzi. As a woman, she was far more sensitive to this feeling than Zhaixingzi. Because of this, she was far more confused than Zhaixingzi. After all, Zhaixingzi's glance was truly shocking. Gusu Chiron just showed her face, and Zhaixingzi was already moved. This was definitely not an ordinary Taoist cultivator's spell. Seeing Huada, Zhaixingzi, and Gusu Chiron fly away, a cultivator standing not far from Zhaixingzi hurriedly transmitted his voice. "Fellow Taoist Zhaixing, I have something to say, but I don't know if I should say it." Zhaixingzi calmed himself down and nodded. "Oh, fellow Taoist Withered Tree, you and I are in the same boat now. Just say it." The cultivator, named Withered Tree, thought for a moment and said, "I'm worried about Huada Immortal. I feel like he is hiding something." Zhaixingzi's expression didn't change and said faintly, "Fellow Taoist, just say it. I believe fellow Taoist knows what a life-bound magic treasure is just like me. How could it be taken so easily?" And from what Huada Immortal said, Xiao Hua's cultivation is higher than his. But why haven't we seen him yet? If that Xiao Hua had already fallen within this defensive formation, then how did he, Taoist, escape? Taoist Withered Tree did not say much, and only pointed out this one sentence. Zhaixingzi sighed and looked at Huada Immortal. After all, he is a Taoist cultivator. At this time, I have no choice but to believe him. Although I know he might want to use our power to achieve his goal, now is the time to join hands. But rest assured, fellow Taoist Withered Tree, if there is anything wrong with Huada, I'll be the first to kill him. Okay. Withered Tree, Taoist nodded and looked at the cultivators in the distance and sighed. Our magic power is almost exhausted, and we are also exhausted. This last rare treasure. A trace of displeasure flashed across Zhaixingzi's face, and he said, "Confucian cultivators have a saying, the first drum is the best, the second is the worst, and the third is the worst. We have only just attacked for the second time. How can fellow Taoists say we are defeated?" Zhaixingzi was displeased, and his majesty was revealed. Withered Tree Taoist's heart skipped a beat, and he didn't dare to say anything more. He closed his mouth and began to channel his magic power. Zhaixingzi flew forward and said with a smile, "Fellow Taoists, we have already seen the power of this defense formation. But as the saying goes, the first drum is the best, the second is the worst, and the third is the worst. This defense formation is the same. When we are tired, the power of the defense formation will also decrease. What is placed in front of us is our last chance. We must seize it. Of course, like before, I still have to remind all of you that if something is wrong, immediately retreat. There is no need to fight like a cornered beast. Your lives are the most important. No matter how precious this rare treasure is, it is still an external object. Yes, we understand. Once Zhai Xingzi spoke, everyone's heart trembled. This kind of innate majesty was not something that could be cultivated later on. However, before they could set up the formation again, Zhang Daoran, Venerable Sun Kong, and the others had already turned into rainbows and arrived. In other directions, several cultivators also flew over and stood in midair. It had to be said that these Taoist cultivators had learned a lot from this Jade Pavilion meeting. They didn't rush forward to snatch the treasures like before, nor did they plot against them. They all abided by the established rules and quietly waited for Zhai Xingzi and the others to make their last attempt. Seeing that Venerable Sun Kong was still mocking them just now, but was now standing obediently by Zhang Daoran's side, Zhai Xingzi suddenly sighed with emotion. It seemed that he should also be standing there. Zhai Xingzi, Venerable Sun Kong, saw Zhai Xingzi looking at him and said coldly, "This is your last attempt. If you fail, it will be my turn. There is no chance for you to wait." Zhai Xingzi also retorted. On the other hand, Zhang Daoran looked around and looked at the last surviving cultivators. He said, "Fellow Taoist Zhai Xingzi, actually, I don't think you guys will succeed. You have to try first." Zhai Xingzi didn't wait for Zhang Daoran to finish and immediately interrupted him. He said coldly, "If I fail, you will succeed?" Zhang Daoran wasn't angry. He smiled and said, "To tell you the truth, I don't have the confidence either." Oh, Zhai Xingzi was a little confused. He didn't understand what Zhang Daoran meant. Zhang Daoran raised his voice and said, "Fellow Taoist, we all saw your first attempt. Since you failed the first time, you may not succeed the second or third time. Besides, this flame formation is the next stage of the Jade Pavilion meeting. The Confucian cultivators of Star Lord Palace definitely won't let us pass easily. If we don't gather our strength and break the formation together, I'm afraid there will be many fellow Taoists who will die here." "I understand what you mean." Zhai Xingzi was a little tempted. He indeed didn't have the slightest bit of confidence. However, at this moment, Perfected Hu said from afar, "Fellow Taoist Zhai Xingzi, I am ready. We can begin now." "Oomph." Exalted Sun Kong snorted and said, "Zhai Xingzi, if you want to die, then hurry up and do it." Zhai Xingzi's face turned cold. He slapped his forehead, and a star-shaped artifact soared into the sky. The starlight twinkled, and countless chi of heaven and earth gathered. Hiss. Exalted Sun Kong saw this, and sucked in a breath of cold air. He transmitted his voice to Zhang Daoran. "Brother Daoran, this Zhai Xingzi seems to have reached the peak of 4th grade essence force. I'm afraid he won't lose to you." Zhang Daoran smiled proudly. Zhai Xingzi's artifact is the falling star. It is known as the artifact closest to a spirit artifact in the Tao sect. My artifact can't compare. Huh. Exalted Sun Kong laughed loudly. How could he not know the meaning behind Zhang Daoran's words? Exalted Sun Kong's laughter had just sounded when Zhai Xingzi's artifact, the falling star, turned into a fist and smashed towards the volcano. On the other side of the volcano, Hu Dejinren also activated his flaming hand, and together with Zhai Xingzi's fist, they attacked the jade box on the volcano. Seeing this, the other cultivators hurriedly activated their magic power again. Right at this moment, something strange happened again. Boom boom! A huge sound came from a mountain of flames in the distance. Before everyone could turn their heads to look, a terrifying aura suddenly came from that place. Not only did all the cultivators tremble and fall a few feet, even half of the flames in the scorching sun grand array were extinguished by this aura. Set up the array. Exalted Sun Kong saw the opportunity quickly and roared. He thought it was Star Lord Hall's killer. Before Zhang Daoran and the other cultivators could fly, they saw a huge light pillar soar into the sky. It passed through the flames and the clouds in the sky and disappeared. Everyone saw that the fear disappeared along with the light pillar like a receding tide. They were very puzzled. However, Zhang Daoran and the others set up the array. The other cultivators also set up the array and were on guard. Rumble. Just as the light disappeared, the entire scorching sun formation began to tremble again. Volcanoes collapsed one after another. Clouds turned into streams of fire and fell from the sky. Forests turned into fiery ponds that spiraled in the air. Everyone turned pale with fright. They were somewhat at a loss. Chapter 3663. Zhang Daren's expression also changed when he saw such a huge change in the array. He scanned the array with his divine sense and exchanged glances with Venerable Sun Kong. Both of their eyes were filled with bitterness. This time, the collapse of the array was a little different from the previous one. It was completely disorderly, and there was no trace to speak of. Moreover, their divine senses had just scanned a few miles when they were immediately defeated by the aura of the collapse. They couldn't go far. Even if they wanted to escape, they would be like headless flies. Oh no! Before they could withdraw their divine senses, the entire space was torn apart. Their divine senses were also cut off in the broken space. Zhang Daoran and Venerable Sun Kong's divine senses were damaged. Their faces were pale. They hurriedly waved their hands and wanted to escape with the other cultivators. At this moment, a loud sound came from beside them. They quickly turned around and saw the volcano where the jade box was located collapse. The space around the volcano was broken and shattered like glass. Thousands of inscriptions surged out of the void. These inscriptions were immediately torn into pieces by the space cracks before they could trigger the noble spirit. Ha! While the other cultivators were at a loss, Zhai Xingzi let out a wild laugh. The big hand formed by the starlight grabbed the jade box that was flowing with the fire in the volcano. Layers of extraordinary colors bloomed from the jade box. Good. Venerable Sun Kong couldn't help but praise. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. After all, they had obtained the last rare treasure. The Jade Pavilion gathering was about to end. The Dragon Gate that would send everyone out would inevitably appear. This collapsing space would naturally stop. Just as everyone's heart settled, they heard Zhai Xingzi's miserable scream. A space crack appeared out of nowhere between Zhai Xingzi's big hand and instantly cut the big hand apart. Zhai Xingzi's expression changed drastically. Woo! Huda Jinren reacted quickly. The flaming hand hurriedly grabbed the jade box that Zhai Xingzi had let go. Zhai Xingzi helplessly waved his hand, and the falling star turned into a speck of starlight and flew back to Zhai Xingzi's eyes. Zhai Xingzi's miserable scream caused everyone's hearts to skip a beat. Because the Dragon Gate was gone and the space was still collapsing, their way out did not appear. Well, what's going on? At this moment, Zhang Daoran was no longer interested in any treasures. All he wanted to do was to escape. The hundreds of cultivators around him were the same. Unfortunately, the collapse of the scorching sun formation was far beyond their expectations. Spatial cracks appeared one after another, turning the formation into pieces. They gradually separated from each other and even became further and further apart. Waves of inscriptions and clusters of flames rushed out again, blocking everyone's line of sight. A golden core cultivator was caught in the flames in a panic. He screamed as his body was corroded. The flames quickly killed him. Immediately afterward, several more golden core disciples were killed by the spatial rifts. They didn't even have the chance to scream. At a place several miles away from Zhang Daoran, Daoist Yuan Qing, Hong Songzi, and Hai Hongzi were watching from afar with a group of gold core disciples. These three nascent soul cultivators had already reached an agreement outside of Yaotai Mountain, and they had also refined a type of joint offensive magical item. Therefore, after they met up with the Crimson Star Grand Formation, they had enough power to protect themselves. After that, they gathered another group of gold core cultivators and rushed here. Naturally, they wouldn't covet the rare treasure anymore. They just wanted to follow Zhang Daoran and get out of the Yaodai gathering safely. At this time, they were also facing a disaster. Seeing that more people were about to die, They also release their magic treasures and other objects to resist. Fellow Taoist, dodge. Taoist Yuan Qing's sharp eyes saw a flame rushing out of the void. He hurriedly shouted at Hong Songzi, who was next to him. Hong Songzi was shocked. His figure suddenly turned into a rainbow and fled into the distance. When he saw Hong Songzi turn into a rainbow, Hai Hongzi became anxious and immediately transmitted a message. Fellow Taoist, stop. However, before his voice could reach Hong Songzi's ears, several spatial cracks suddenly appeared and landed on Hong Songzi's body in the blink of an eye. Kacha! Hong Songzi's treasured clothes blossomed with aqua blue brilliance and instantly shattered. His corporeal body was also torn apart along with the treasured clothes that fluttered away. Chirp! A nascent soul cultivator wearing a treasured armor flew out of his body at the critical moment. His small face was full of panic. Taoist Yuan Qing's heart turned cold. When he saw that Hong Songzi's nascent soul did not disappear and was not sucked away by the huge suction force, he could not help but be slightly stunned. Kacha! Just as Taoist Yuan Qing was about to fly towards Hong Songzi, another huge spatial crack appeared. Hong Songzi's nascent soul had just turned blurry, and before he could use his teleportation technique, he was immediately swallowed by the darkness of the spatial crack. Not only that, but a huge flame rushed out from the spatial rift and separated Taoist Yuan Qing and Hai Hongzi. Taoist Yuan Qing was surrounded by red clouds and flames. Damn it! Taoist Yuan Qing cursed angrily. He waved his hand, and the broken halberd appeared in his hand. A water blue brilliance flew out from the halberd and rushed toward the flame. Bang! 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 A violent explosion sounded. The flame was shattered and a small gap appeared. Taoist Yuan Qing did not have time to identify where the gap led to and was about to rush in. At this moment, a strange sword sound came from the clouds below him, and then it became quiet. In a moment, the crimson clouds surged violently, and a slender figure rushed out from the clouds. Xiao! Taoist Xiao! Taoist Yuan Qing's face lit up when he saw the familiar appearance and figure. He hurriedly flew over. However, before he could reach Xiao Hua, Taoist Yuan Qing stopped in his tracks. This was because Xiao Hua was lying on top of the clouds as soon as he rushed out. His eyes were tightly shut, and there was no breath coming from his mouth or nose. Moreover, his face was pale, and his Taoist robe was in tatters. There were clearly several wounds on his exposed skin that went deep into his body. Xiao Hua was seriously injured. Seeing that Xiao Hua was seriously injured, the joy on Taoist Yuan Qing's face disappeared and was replaced by an extremely strange green and red color and hesitation. Xiao Hua, wake up! Taoist Yuan Qing did not go to help but called out in a low voice. Unfortunately, Taoist Yuan Qing called out a few times, but Xiao Hua did not respond at all. Taoist Yuan Qing saw this and bit his lips. His eyes narrowed and the halberd in his hand faintly glowed. Little Confucian cultivator, what are you doing? Inside Xiao Hua's body, the green-robed Xiao Hua controlled his nascent soul to repair his dantian. He was shocked when he saw the Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua actually withdrew his sword form and fell here. You know, Jade Archive Xiao Hua is somewhat guarded against this bastard. How can you expose our true bodies in front of him? This is called loosening the reins only to grasp them better. Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua said proudly. Fellow immortal Jade Archive, Xiao Hua doesn't know what this bastard is thinking, right? You don't know whether his actions in the defensive formation are friend or foe, right? If he makes a move this time, won't the truth come to light? Rest assured, fellow immortal green robe, how can he injure our true bodies with his cultivation alone? Xiao Hua, Taoist Yuan Qing clenched his teeth and roared as if he had made a decision. But he moved his hand and then stopped. After all, Xiao Hua had already played dead twice in front of him. How could he dare to take the risk after killing Jing Muhu and Taoist Chu? After thinking for a while, Taoist Yuan Qing carefully took out a jade bottle from his bosom and said in a low voice, Daoist Xiao, I have some healing pills here. As he spoke, he walked towards Xiao Hua's body. The tip of the small halberd in his hand was pointed at Xiao Hua's forehead. Damn it! Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua cursed. This bastard is too cunning. What is he trying to do? Alas, Confucian cultivator, you and I are fellow Taoist Jade Archives clones after all. We don't know much about human nature. The green-robed Xiao Hua sighed. Don't think about it. Just kill him. Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua's tone was rather regretful. Although he was well-read and thoughtful, his understanding of human nature was much worse than Xiao Hua's. Don't worry. Suddenly, Subhoodie, who had been hiding in the exquisite pagoda all this time, shouted, "There's a good show." Good. The green-robed Xiao Hua smiled. Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua also praised, "It's fate that brought us together." Sure enough, just as Taoist Yuan Qing was about to approach Xiao Hua's body, another Kacha sound rang out. Several cracks appeared in a corner of the space fragment, causing it to collapse. At the same time, another fragment was connected to this one. Taoist Yuan Qing suddenly raised his eyebrows. He looked at the space fragment that had just rushed over with great vigilance. His figure hastily flew back and landed in the gap that had just collapsed. Ouch! Just as Taoist Yuan Qing left, a woman with flames burning on her body staggered and flew down from the distance. Wasn't this the extremely beautiful Fairy Jing that Xiao Hua had seen before? Fairy Jing landed on the clouds. Her body was slanted as if she was injured. At the same time, a multicolored light appeared on her palm and was about to fall on the flames on her body. However, when Fairy Jing's gaze fell on the unconscious Xiao Hua's face, she even forgot about extinguishing the fire. She cried out in alarm, "Xiao Hua!" Carrying the flames on her body, she rushed to the side of the clouds. TSK, TSK. Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua smacked his lips and said with admiration, "We've only met a few times. It can't be this bad." With that, Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua opened his mouth and a stream of true qi rushed out from somewhere in Xiao Hua's body and landed on Fairy Jing's body. The inscriptions on the flames were shattered by this true qi, and the flames extinguished themselves. Fairy Jing landed beside Xiao Hua and didn't hesitate to place her white hand on Xiao Hua's lower dantian. This made the green-robed Xiao Hua hesitate. Xiao Hua himself would never allow others to inspect his dantian like this. However, Fairy Jing was very concerned and worried about Xiao Hua, which made the green-robed Xiao Hua hesitate. During this moment of hesitation, Fairy Jing's true qi landed on Xiao Hua's dantian. Fairy Jing was dumbfounded. Her face was filled with disbelief because the green-robed Xiao Hua had intentionally placed that true qi on the part of his dantian that hadn't been repaired. How could Fairy Jing not know what it was like for a late-stage nascent soul cultivator to have his dantian shattered and his nascent soul missing? A kind of sadness and discomfort appeared in Fairy Jing's heart. Her eyes were somewhat red. Chapter 36-64. Just as the green-robed Xiao Hua was about to speak to the scholarly cultivator Xiao Hua, Xiao Hua's body suddenly moved. He circulated his cultivation method and forced out Fairy Jing's true yuan. The green-robed Xiao Hua knew that Jade Archive Xiao Hua had awakened. Everything was about to end. Fairy Jing's heart was filled with grief. She didn't notice that the flames on her body had extinguished, nor did she notice that her true yuan had been forced out. She saw Xiao Hua's eyelids blink a few times and slowly open. She hastily changed into a cheerful smile and forced herself to say, "Xiao Hua, you're awake." "Oh, Fairy Jing?" Xiao Hua saw Fairy Jing's smiling face and didn't understand for a moment. However, when he heard her words, he understood the whole story. He glanced at her and said, "You, why are you here? Where's this place?" "Oh, this is the last great formation of the Jade Mountain. The last treasure has already been taken by Hua the Taoist," Fairy Jing hastily replied. However, the Dragon Gate of the Jade Pavilion Gathering hasn't appeared yet. The entire Great Formation is collapsing, and all the cultivators are in a mess. Xiaohua heard this and couldn't help but smile helplessly. Nonsense. Kong Hongwu was killed by him. How could the Dragon Gate of the Jade Pavilion Gathering appear? As soon as he woke up, he met Fairy Jing and didn't have a chance to see Kong Hongwu's Chinquan bag. Of course, he didn't know how to open the Dragon Gate. Xiaohua, how did you get here? Just now, no. I haven't seen you for a year. Fairy Jing hastily asked, as if she was afraid that she wouldn't have the time to ask in this life. Xiaohua laughed bitterly once more and said in a low voice, I was injured by the boulders in the rockfall formation, and then I lost consciousness. Now that I've just woken up, I presume all the grand formations were destroyed, and I was sent out as well? Ouch, my dantian. When Xiaohua finished speaking, he actually cried out in alarm, as if no one else could hear him. Shoo! Fairy Jing was anxious and whispered, Xiaohua, don't say anything. Your dantian is broken and your cultivation is no longer there. What a Taoist, and the others are not far away. You mustn't let them know. I'll take you to find Senior Taoist and the others first. Okay. Xiaohua's face was filled with panic as he hurriedly agreed. With Fairy Jing's help, he struggled to get up. Wind blew through the gap between the flames in the distance, as if someone was about to enter. At this moment, there was a boom. Sound. It was the sound of waves crashing into the mountain rocks that the Taoist cultivators were very familiar with. Everyone's vision darkened. Then, a meteor soared into the sky and crashed into the crimson flames. The entire crimson sky shook violently. A huge black hole flashed with a golden frame. The meteor turned into a huge sun in the black hole. A three-legged golden crow flashed in the sun. Then the entire sun fell into the black hole and disappeared. A dazzling brilliance rushed out from the black hole. This brilliance was like a rainbow bridge. One end of the rainbow bridge was placed on the black hole, and the other end landed on the collapsed array. The strange thing was that as soon as the rainbow bridge fell, the entire disintegrating array stopped splitting. All the flames, inscriptions, and spatial cracks froze. Is this the Dragon Gate? Xiaohua was dumbfounded. After all, he was already looking through Kong Hongwu's Chinquan bag. Let's go. Fairy Jing didn't care about this. She roared and dragged Xiaohua to where the rainbow bridge fell. Below the rainbow bridge stood Zhaixing Zi. At this moment, Zhaixing Zi didn't step on the rainbow bridge. Instead, he looked up at the place where the meteor had come from. That place was filled with crimson clouds, so he couldn't see anything. However, Zhaixing Zi clearly saw that behind the clouds, there was a woman whose face was also covered in red clouds. Fairy Jing had just left with Xiaohua when the ashen-faced Taoist Yuan Qing emerged from behind the solidified flames. He fiercely stomped his feet on the clouds with a remorseful look on his face. Soon after, he flew up and carefully covered his tracks as he followed behind Fairy Jing. This isn't the Dragon Gate. Taoist Hua stood not too far away from Zhaixing Zi and coldly said, This is Star-Lord Palace's trap. The cultivators who had left the Jade Pavilion Gathering didn't move. Although the cultivators who hadn't seen the Dragon Gate open before were tempted, they still stopped after hearing Taoist Huda's words. The entire world was silent. Not a single sound could be heard. Zhaixing Zi's eyes narrowed. He shifted his gaze away from the clouds and stepped on them as he sang. 1,000-year withered tree doesn't see water. A 10,000-year ancient well doesn't have ripples. Today, when the withered tree meets spring, the stagnant water ripples. My heart is firm. The onlookers were bewildered. Above the clouds, Gusu Chiron bit her lips. Her face was so red that it seemed like it would drip water at any moment. She moaned, Damn it. Although I don't know why I'm willing to give up everything for you. With your words, I'm satisfied to wander the world. Taoist Zhaixing, be careful. Taoist Hua seemed to be worried. Zhaixing Zi wasn't afraid at all. He waved his sleeve and said, You don't believe me, but I do. Who else wants to come up? I'm coming. At this time, Xiaohua flew over with Fairy Jing. Fairy Jing's face was also red and hot. She wasn't inferior to Gusu Chiron, who was hiding behind the clouds. After all, she was carrying a male cultivator in front of so many cultivators. Although Fairy Jing was carrying Xiaohua, in order to cover it up, Xiaohua and Fairy Jing were holding hands. This kind of intimacy was really moving. Okay, Daoist Xiao, please. Zhai Xingzi laughed and waved his hand. Fairy Jing and Xiaohua passed through the crowd and landed on the Rainbow Bridge. Xiaohua, Daoist Huoda bit his lips and fiercely looked at Xiaohua. An indescribable feeling arose in his heart. He couldn't help but want to fly up. Oh, Brother Xiao, you're still alive? Zhang Daoran and Sun Kong were both doubtful. Seeing Xiaohua suddenly appear with Fairy Jing, they were pleasantly surprised and immediately flew onto the Rainbow Bridge. With Xiaohua here, they had an indescribable confidence. Daoist Xiao has come. The group of nascent soul cultivators and gold core cultivators behind Zhang Daoran were all boiling with excitement. Those who had seen Xiaohua's great display of invincible might within the Rockfall Formation all rushed onto the Rainbow Bridge one after another. Those who hadn't seen him before had long since been talked about by these cultivators to the point that calluses grew on their ears. Seeing Xiaohua, who was more powerful than Zhang Daoran and Sun Kong, leave, how could they still stay? Xiaohua, Daoist Huoda, clenched his teeth and also helplessly braced himself to fly onto the Rainbow Bridge. He knew in his heart that although this wasn't Kong Hongwu's Dragon Gate, since others had gone up, he could not go up. However, he was still curious. What exactly was this Rainbow Bridge? If he was in danger, would Kong Hongwu help? The Rainbow Bridge didn't move and stabilized the collapse of the blazing fire formation. Zhai Xingzi and the others rushed into the black hole and quickly disappeared. After all the cultivators had left, Gusu Chiron also appeared from the clouds. She turned to look at the fire and debris under her feet and clapped her hands. A cloud fell from the sky, and a moment later, a woman in a Taoist robe flew out from the cloud. A broken star armor fell from the cloud. When Gusu Chiron landed on a Rainbow Bridge, the Rainbow Bridge slowly shrank and disappeared into the black hole. Gusu Chiron silently looked at the collapsing formation and frowned. She was very surprised. Kong Hongwu, where'd he go? Could it be that something big happened to Star-Lord Palace? Right now, I'm afraid this is the best time for me to escape from Star-Lord Palace. When Gusu Chiron's figure disappeared, the blazing sun formation began to boil and collapse again. There was indeed no one inside the formation, whether it was Taoist cultivators or Star-Lord Palace's immortal soldiers. However, Gusu Chiron was wrong. She knew that the scorching sun formation was set by the immortal generals of the immortal palaces. The Confucian cultivators of Celestial Lord Hall, from Kong Hongwu to the Celestial Lord guarding the formation, couldn't pry into it. Thus, she boldly used the so-called Peach Zombie Li Meng to escape. However, she didn't know that after the Lin Yao pot escaped, the formation under Yaotai Mountain had already collapsed and the connection between the sun, moon, and star formation was gradually disappearing. On the Yaotai Mountain, within the palace, Linghu Pyron was standing before the mirror with an indifferent expression. Although the things on the mirror appeared to be rather indistinct, Linghu Pyron was holding his chin with one hand. He was looking at all of this in a very thought-provoking manner. His eyes contained a sneer, confusion, and even a trace of concern. The light from the Lin Yao pot rushed out of Yaotai Mountain and quickly disappeared into the void. The Heavenly General's primordial spirit shadow followed behind like a real person. When it reached the sky, it opened its mouth and a palm-sized Imperial equipment flew out. This Imperial equipment was in the shape of a flying shuttle, and a layer of light purple clouds appeared on top of it. The Heavenly General's body swayed, and the entire primordial spirit shadow entered the Imperial equipment. Buzz! The flying shuttle let out a strong roar, and the space within a few feet showed slight distortions. A huge pillar of vast sheaf fell into the flying shuttle from all directions. Whoosh! The flying shuttle didn't move at all, and it crashed into the void and disappeared. After an unknown amount of time, the flying shuttle that was flying forward at an extremely fast speed in the void suddenly hit an invisible enchantment. Circles of nine-colored light rippled in all directions in the void. Even the void was extremely distorted. When the flying shuttle entered the restriction, it suddenly slowed down, and an extremely long shadow appeared. The originally palm-sized flying shuttle was stretched to 1,000 feet long. The rumbling sound of the flying shuttle also became muffled and erratic at this point. Then, thousands of light spots flew out from the flying shuttle. Layers of inscriptions bloomed like an epiphyllum. Ripples appeared on the left side of the flying shuttle. The light spots scattered around the flying shuttle rushed into the depths of the sea and disappeared without a trace. There was a palace made of silver, and the surroundings were filled with light green clouds. The brilliance of the clouds was like the sky, illuminating the surroundings. The palace's vermilion door was extremely large. Above the vermilion door of the palace, there was a bright plaque with 3 inscriptions: Jasper Flower Palace. An indescribable majesty was emitted from these 3 inscriptions, covering a range of several hundred feet in front of the palace. Chapter 36-65. Behind the towering palace gate were layers upon layers of pavilions and pavilions. They were dazzling, exquisite, and majestic. In the clouds above the pavilions, colorful phoenixes danced gracefully, followed by hundreds of other immortal birds. Their cries entered one's ears. On the ground inside the palace, clouds were also rolling. They seemed to be evergreen, immortal grasses. Immortal trees were everywhere, giving off a clear light and a delicate fragrance. In the palace, many young women dressed in palace dresses of various colors were holding jade bottles, ruby scepters, and other things. They were flying around on auspicious clouds. Similarly, there were also many young children playing or weeding beside the immortal grasses. It was indeed the auspicious and aura of immortals. It seemed that everything was normal. At this moment, in an extremely secret pavilion in the palace, a strange brilliance suddenly flashed. Then, the crackling sound of firewood being roasted on a bonfire could be heard. Then, from the corridor outside the pavilion, a woman in her 20s flew in at an extremely fast speed. She was as beautiful as a flower, and her watery peach blossom eyes flashed with a seductive smile. When the woman saw the brilliance in the pavilion and the bright clouds that were constantly gushing out from the noise, her face lit up with joy. But then, she frowned slightly and raised her left hand. Her fingers that were whiter than snowflakes quickly bent. In just a moment, the woman's face changed greatly. She almost cried out in surprise, "Why, isn't there still a few hours left? Why did this thing suddenly fly back?" After saying that, the woman's face became ferocious, and the sweet smile disappeared in an instant. Then, the woman flew to the pavilion. However, before she could get close, layers of tiny inscriptions gushed out from all over the pavilion, forming a huge chain armor. The chain armor shone brightly, and each ray of light was like a sharp sword, blocking the woman's path. Alas! The woman's eyes turned slightly, and then she seemed to have thought of something. She stepped on an auspicious cloud, rushed out of the pavilion, and flew directly to the palace gate of Jasper Flower Palace. Along the way, many palace maids stopped on their clouds and stood quietly to greet her. The woman looked hurried and didn't pay any attention to them at all, causing these palace maids to lower their heads and whisper to each other. After a while, the woman returned from outside the palace with a strange expression. She rushed into the depths of the palace and only stopped when she came to a small door. She lowered her cloud and took a deep breath. She walked to the door and lowered her head. Gu Xianyun requests to see the princess. After a while, a young and beautiful woman walked out of the small door and said with a smile, "Sister Xianyun, The princess is not in the palace today. If you have something to do, you can come in 3 days. Hearing this, Gu Xianyun's face changed and he begged, Sister Xiajing, where did the princess go? Little sister has an urgent matter here. I want to report this to the princess as soon as possible. If there's any delay, I won't be able to keep my life. Hearing this, the woman's face turned serious and she asked anxiously, Xianyun, what happened? However, this was only said out of impatience. After saying this, the woman quickly said, Oh, Xianyun, you don't have to explain it to me. Then she took Gu Xianyun's hand and comforted him. Don't worry, sister. It's only 3 days. The princess will be back soon. Sister, 3 days. 3 days is 3 years. Gu Xianyun blurted out, but he didn't say it out loud. Hearing this, Yu Xiajing immediately understood. Of course, she also knew the key point. However, she still shook her head slightly. Sister Xianyun, it's not that I don't want to send a message to you. It's the princess who doesn't allow it. Yesterday, the princess went to the school of the Emperor's Star with Princess Meow Meow. Do you think I can go to the school of the Emperor's Star to send a message? Alas! Hearing the school of the Emperor's Star, Gu Xianyun immediately lowered his head and muttered, Princess Qingqing has always been at odds with the school of the Emperor's Star. If I go to send a message, I'll be seeking death. Both of them will die. Which one do you choose? Yu Xiajing blinked and looked at Gu Xianyun. Gu Xianyun froze and then pondered. After a while, he bowed and said, Thank you for your reminder, sister. Everything will be decided after the princess comes back. Yes, that's right. Don't be too anxious. Yu Xiajing nodded with a smile. Although I don't know what kind of task you're doing for the princess, there's no need to rush. However, since it's a task, there's a possibility that you'll screw it up. Then, I'll have to see how badly I screw it up. Imagine if I made any mistakes and how the princess will punish me. Actually, the princess empathizes with us the most. She won't be too harsh on us. Gu Xianyun smiled bitterly and said in a low voice, Actually, I'm not sure either. However, perhaps it's not as serious as I think. Elder sister, if the princess comes back, can you take a look at her mood before you inform this little sister? You're making things difficult for me. Yu Xiajing smiled even more bitterly. When has the princess ever come back with a smile from the school of the Emperor's Star? Sister, you're just making things difficult for me. My life is at stake. Gu Xianyun begged, Sister, you must think for me. Sister Xianyun, go ahead. I'll remember this. Yu Xiajing smiled. Everything will be fine after the heaven selection. Yes, thank you, sister. Gu Xianyun squeezed out a smile. After Yu Xiajing entered the small door, he walked out of the small courtyard with displeasure on his face. Then, he flew to the pavilion from before and waited there quietly. After a while, Gu Xianyun flew up from the ground again. With a cold smile on his face, he muttered, No, I can't just wait here like this. That thing has come back. Although it's early, it's not a big mistake. However, I'm afraid only Kong Hongwu knows what happened at Yaodai Mountain. If I don't get to the bottom of this, when the princess asks, how can I answer? As he spoke, Gu Xianyun flew into a corridor and disappeared. Poor Xiao Hua didn't know that the trouble this time actually involved the princess of the Immortal Palace. He followed Fairy Jing onto the Rainbow Bridge. Naturally, Fairy Jing took him and flew behind Zhai Xingzi. Although Zhang Daoran and Sun Kongshang are behind them, they just looked at each other and didn't say anything. After they flew across the Rainbow Bridge and rushed into the huge black hole, just like when they entered Yaotai Mountain, light and shadow flashed. As if they had passed through many small worlds, a vast mountain range appeared in front of Xiao Hua and the others. Woo-woo! At this moment, the north wind was blowing above the mountain range. Large snowflakes fell from the sky. Before they could land, they were torn to pieces by the wind. A gust of cold air rushed into Xiao Hua's mouth and nose. Xiao Hua took a deep breath. It was really a refreshing feeling. I'm Zhai Xingzi. I didn't ask for your Dharma name. Zhai Xingzi flew in front. After he left Yaotai Mountain, he scanned with his divine sense, and a smile appeared on his face. He looked at Xiao Hua holding hands with Fairy Jing and said with a smile, I really envy your intimacy with your lover. The blush on Fairy Jing's face increased. She pulled back her hand and didn't dare to take it back. She opened her mouth to say something, but didn't know how to refute. She simply lowered her head and didn't say anything. Xiao Hua smiled and cupped his hands, saying, I'm Xiao Hua. My Dharma name is Taoist Xiao. Xiao Hua. Zhai Xingzi frowned. A cold smile immediately appeared on his face. So you're Xiao Hua. Not bad, not bad. Zhai Xingzi said not bad, but his face was full of disdain. How is that not bad? What's the meaning of this, Taoist? Xiao Hua was somewhat bewildered. Just as he was about to speak, Zhai Xingzi flung his sleeve and said coldly, I originally thought you were a forthright person. Who knew? Your heart was actually dirty. Alas, you can't judge a book by its cover. After saying that, he urged his figure and flew to the other side of the foothills. Is this guy sick? Xiao Hua was completely at a loss and couldn't help but say in a low voice. Uft. Fairy Jing on the side chuckled and said, previously on Yaotai Mountain, Zhai Xingzi was together with Taoist Huda. You must have heard Taoist Huda's ugly words. TCH, I was wondering. Xiao Hua suddenly came to a realization. He tilted his head and looked at the rippling water like air behind him. The cultivators flew out one by one. He smiled and said, Fairy Jing, do you think I should kill Taoist Huda right now? If Taoist Huda hadn't been mentioned, Fairy Jing wouldn't have thought about it. However, when she looked back, she found that except for her and Xiao Hua, who followed closely behind Zhai Xingzi, the other cultivators didn't fly out of the Yaotai, meeting in the same order as on the Rainbow Bridge. Zhang Daoran and Sun Kong Shangren weren't behind them at all. This is bad. Fairy Jing hurriedly urged her magic power to fly away. While flying, she scolded, You still want to find trouble. It's good enough that Taoist Huda didn't find trouble with us. Us? Xiao Hua touched his nose and smiled bitterly. However, after thinking for a moment, he still pretended that he had lost his cultivation. Fortunately, Fairy Jing didn't have to worry for long. A moment later, several powerful divine senses swept over. Two of them were Zhang Daoran and Sun Kong Shangren. The two turned into rainbows and rushed over from afar. The other divine senses were somewhat resentfully retracted. Brother Xiao, Sun Kong Shangren shouted without flying close. You're really good. It seems that Fairy Jing was still beside this old man just a moment ago. This in just a few breaths of time, you actually seen your Sun Kong. Fairy Jing's face was very red. She hurriedly flew over with Xiao Hua and shouted, Senior, quickly come and take a look. Xiao Hua. At this point, Fairy Jing changed to transmitting her voice. Zhang Daoran was naturally more attentive than Sun Kong Shangren. When he saw that Xiao Hua wasn't flying and was being carried by Fairy Jing, he already felt something was wrong. Without waiting for Fairy Jing to transmit her voice, he hurriedly flew over to Xiao Hua and raised his hand to check Xiao Hua's injuries. However, at this moment, Zhang Daoran stopped and looked at Xiao Hua with a stunned expression. At this moment, Xiao Hua's lips were slightly moving as if he was explaining something. Xiao Hua didn't say much and only said a few words. Zhang Daoran slightly frowned. He looked at Fairy Jing and then at Sun Kong Shangren. His expression was very serious as he said, Brother Sun Kong, do you have any medicinal pills? Chapter 3666. When Sun Kong heard this, he shook his head slightly and said with a bitter smile, Brother Daoran, you really think too highly of me. My Dantian is destroyed, and my nascent soul, I'm afraid it will also be greatly damaged. Not to mention completely obliterated. Even if I lose an arm or a leg, to completely recover, not only will I need to take a nascent soul pill, but I also need to cultivate for hundreds of years to fully recover. That nascent soul pill is a legendary immortal pill. I've only heard of it and never seen it, but at this point, Sun Kong hesitated and said in a low voice, I know a secret recipe to use the nascent soul of a cultivator who just became a nascent soul. Xiao Hua laughed and hurriedly waved his hand. He gave Zhang Daoren a look and then said to Sun Kong, "No need to trouble Brother Sun Kong. I have a medicinal pill here. Although it's not as good as the nascent soul pill that fellow Taoist mentioned, it has an excellent effect on rebuilding the Dantian. I just haven't had a chance to take it. After a while, I'll find a place to take it. Although it can't be completely recovered in a short time, it's possible to use magic power and divine sense." Brother Xiao, what medicinal pill is this?" Zhang Daoren was transmitting his voice to Sun Kong. Before Zhang Daoren could explain clearly, Sun Kong heard Xiao Hua showing off and hurriedly spoke. As soon as he opened his mouth, he was scolded by Zhang Daoren. Sun Kong's face also showed embarrassment. After all, both of them felt that Xiao Hua was making an excuse. Unexpectedly, Xiao Hua raised his hand and took out a jade bottle from his bosom. He said with a smile, "This pill is called the Heaven Mending Pill. Not only can it be used to repair the Dantian, but it can also repair meridians." "Damn, the name is really arrogant," Sun Kong said with a smile. "If it can repair nascent souls, that's even better." Xiao Hua shrugged his shoulders and took another Heaven Mend pill. He replied, "This medicinal pill has been used by Little Brother before on Gold Core and Foundation building disciples whose cultivations were crippled. I still don't know what kind of effect it has on nascent souls." "Really?" Not to mention Sun Kong. Even Zhang Daoren asked with some surprise. Xiao Hua smiled and took out a few more jade bottles and handed them over. He said, "I'll give these two brothers some first. Thank you for your care on Yaotai Mountain." He, Zhang Daoren, and Master Sun Kong laughed and caught it. They looked at each other, and there seemed to be something else in their eyes. Xiao Hua, if you've consumed the medicinal pill, you should first find an abode to rest in. Once your injuries are slightly better, I'll ask the two seniors to send you back to Black Cloud Ridge." Fairy Jing had been holding Xiao Hua back. Her previous anxiousness was a temporary measure, but now that there were two male cultivators, Fairy Jing could no longer act as a temporary measure. Now that Zhang Daoren and Sun Kong already knew that Xiao Hua's injuries were fake, they naturally wouldn't expose it. They hurriedly waved their hands and said, "We still have matters to attend to. I'm afraid we can't send Xiao Hua back to Black Cloud Ridge. Fairy Jing, if you don't have any special matters, why don't you send Xiao Hua back? You're a nascent soul cultivator, so you should be able to protect Xiao Hua." Fairy Jing didn't expect the two of them to push the blame away, so she hesitated. Zhang Daoren thought a lot. He smiled and said, "Now that we have come out of the Yaodai assembly, we have escaped from the tiger's den, there is no need to be so anxious. As a matter of fact, the fellow Taoists who trained with us on the Yaotai Mountain have all gathered here. Let's first discuss how to distribute the things we obtained on the Yaotai Mountain. Brother Xiao also happens to be recuperating from his injuries. It won't be too late for Fairy Jing to make a decision when it's time to leave." But Fairy Jing nodded slightly. She looked to the left and pointed to a mountain peak in the distance, saying, "How about over there? Junior will take Xiao Hua there first." Sun Kong looked up. Although there was a lot of snow on the mountain peak, there was a large, flat, open space suitable for cultivators to rest. He nodded and said, "Then I'll have to trouble you, Fairy Jing." Fairy Jing flew away with Xiao Hua. Sun Kong took out the jade bottle, looked at it for a moment, and whispered a few words to Zhang Daoren. Soon after, over 100 cultivators flew over from all directions. They were the Taoist cultivators who had gone through life and death with them at the Yaotai assembly a year ago. Even if Kong Han Wu was still alive, he probably couldn't believe that the Yaotai assembly he had painstakingly created to provoke Taoist cultivators to kill each other and weaken the power of Taoist cultivators had now become an opportunity for Taoist cultivators to get closer and cultivate feelings. Although it hadn't happened before, from today onwards, more and more cultivators had tasted the sweetness and began to form groups at the Yaotai assembly. When these cultivators saw Zhang Daoren and Sun Kong, they were still as respectful as they were at the Yaotai assembly. After greeting them, they stood quietly on the left in an extremely orderly manner. However, while many cultivators were standing, They also looked into the distance, as if they were checking Xiao Hua's movements. After less than an hour, Zhang Daoran looked around and said with a smile, "Fellow Taoists, thank you for trusting me and fellow Taoist Sun Kong and handing over all our gains in the Yaotai meeting. We can't let you down. Now, please come with us to discuss. We'll find a time and place, and we'll distribute our gains to you." Okay. The cultivators all smiled and said, "Seniors, you can come up with a plan. We believe in you." That's not right. Sun Kong looked at the nearly 300 cultivators and said in confusion, "How come this old man doesn't remember there being so many people?" Huh? Zhang Daoran flew up and said with a laugh, "Those who can come are naturally Taoist cultivators. This old man won't mind. Brother Sun Kong, you don't have to worry about it." Okay. Sun Kong glanced at the crowd and said indifferently, "If you're sincere, this old man won't say anything. If you're half-hearted, don't blame this old man for being ruthless." After saying that, Sun Kong followed Zhang Daoran and flew to the mountain peak. Everyone was magnanimous and didn't care about Sun Kong's words. They followed the two to the mountain peak. Naturally, Xiaohua wouldn't immediately meditate. Instead, he stood there with a smile on his face. All the cultivators flew in front of him, then landed and bowed. Every one of them had a respectful expression on their faces. Xiaohua was very humble. After returning everyone's greetings, he said with a smile, "This Xiao has never been good at socializing. Previously, after leaving Yaodai Mountain, I wanted to leave first. However, Brother Dao Ran and Brother Sun Kong stopped this Xiao, saying that the idea of the trade fair was this Xiao's idea and that this Xiao must appear. This Xiao thought for a moment and didn't dare to agree. After all, this Xiao has his own matters to attend to. Moreover, these two brothers' characters and moral integrity are trustworthy. They definitely won't disappoint you. If the Xiao didn't go, it would be unnecessary." Zhang Daoran and Sun Kong glanced at each other and smiled bitterly. The two of them naturally wanted to invite Xiao Hua to participate in the trade fair. However, they didn't expect that Xiao Hua would refuse before they even opened their mouths. Apart from what Xiao Hua said earlier, there must be some other misgivings. "Brother Xiao, you're wrong," Sun Kong hurriedly said. "Since this idea was yours, you have to take responsibility until the end. Even if you don't participate, you have to at least know how the trade is done, the time and place of the trade, and even the results of the trade, right?" "That's right. We hope that Taoist Master Xiao can also participate if you have the time." The cultivators looked at Xiao Hua fervently. Xiao Hua thought for a moment and nodded. "This Xiao has some injuries and needs to heal first. How about you two discuss it with your fellow Taoists first and inform this Xiao when there's a result?" "Good." Exalted Master Sun Kong signaled Zhang Daoran with his eyes again, and he led the group of cultivators to discuss the matters of the trade. Zhang Daoran brought Xiao Hua and Fairy Jing to a secluded place. Zhang Daoran didn't avoid Fairy Jing and said with a smile, "Brother Xiao, do you know how to refine pills?" "I do." Xiao Hua nodded. Zhang Daoran's face revealed a happy expression and probed, "Was the heaven-mending pill refined by Brother Xiao?" "Yes," Xiao Hua said concisely, putting Zhang Daoran's heart at ease. "Good, good, good," Zhang Daoran said 3 times in a row and rubbed his hands. There are many fellow Taoists in the hidden immortal continent who can refine pills. Even this old man can only refine ordinary pills. As far as this old man knows, there isn't a single cultivator who can refine an immortal pill like the heaven-mending pill. Xiao Hua smiled. He naturally understood what Zhang Daoran said. The cultivators of the hidden immortal continent had to rely on themselves to cultivate, whether it was refining pills or refining tools. However, because of limited energy, limited spiritual herbs, and limited materials, those who could truly become masters were naturally very few. Moreover, once they cultivated to foundation establishment, they had to prepare spiritual herbs for the dry separation pill and familiarize themselves with the refining method. Once they cultivated to Jindan, they had to worry about the nascent pregnancy pill. How could they be distracted by other pills? Even if there were some rogue cultivators who didn't establish a country and wanted to make a living by refining pills and refining tools, it would be impossible for them to cultivate to the point of perfection by themselves, right? Brother Daoran, if you have any errands, just say the word, Xiao Hua said with a smile. Zhang Daoran waved his hand. Let's talk about it in detail later. It's not appropriate to say it now. Good. If Brother Daoran has something to do, this Xiao will definitely do his best. Xiao Hua agreed. Moreover, after thinking for a moment, he waved his hand and took out a small Chinquan pouch. He handed it to Zhang Daoran and said, the pills inside are for Brother Daoran and Brother Sun Kong. You can distribute them as you see fit. Zhang Daoran took the small Chinquan pouch and scanned it with his divine sense. He opened his mouth slightly, and his face was full of surprise. Xiao Hua was already used to Zhang Daoran's surprise. Without waiting for Zhang Daoran to speak, he handed over a rejuvenation pill and a heaven-mending pill to Fairy Jing. He said, Fairy Jing, this Xiao has a few pills for female cultivators. They aren't considered precious. Please kindly accept them. Fairy Jing pursed her lips and smiled. Generally speaking, women didn't care whether the things given by others were precious or not. What they cared about was whether others gave them things. Xiao Hua didn't say what kind of pills he gave Fairy Jing. Fairy Jing's heart was immediately filled with sweetness. Fairy Jing reached out to take them and carefully put them away in the Chinquan pouch. She lowered her head and said, Many thanks, fellow Taoist Xiao. No need to thank me. No need to thank me. Xiao Hua blinked his eyes. Just take it as my thanks for escorting Fairy Jing. Chapter 36-67. Hee, if you want me to be your bodyguard. I'm afraid these pills won't be enough. Fairy Jing replied with a chuckle. Since Xiao Hua wanted to cast a long line to catch a big fish, he naturally had to act well. Fairy Jing was a necessary person. Seeing Fairy Jing agree, Xiao Hua laughed and clapped his hands. Fairy Jing, you can name your price. If I have anything, I'll give it to you. Fairy Jing was overjoyed and acted like a spoiled child. Her eyes rippled with a smile. I've been thinking day and night about entering the leaving body realm. I wonder if fellow Taoist Xiao can help me? No problem. Xiao Hua agreed without hesitation. Seeing Xiao Hua's seriousness, Fairy Jing hurriedly waved her hand. Fellow Taoist Xiao, I'm just joking with you. No need to take it seriously. I'll be happy if fellow Taoist can give me some pointers on cultivation. I'm not joking, Xiao Hua said seriously. Then, he even looked at Zhang Daoran, who was smiling beside him. Brother Daoran, we all have to face the out-of-body stage. Isn't it better to comprehend it together than to work behind closed doors? Well said, Brother Xiao. Zhang Daoran hurriedly gave a thumbs up and praised. When Brother said you weren't going to participate in the trade fair, I was worried that Brother had some misgivings and that we had some bad intentions. Now, it seems that's not the case. Since that's the case, Brother Xiao, this old man will discuss something with you. Then, Zhang Daoran transmitted a few words to Xiao Hua. The general idea was that he wanted to unite his forces with Sun Kong's and Xiao Hua's forces to develop together. Moreover, there was a faint hint of entrusting. Xiao Hua pondered for a moment and nodded. This matter is of great importance. I'm afraid it's not something that can be explained in a few words. After the trade fair, I'll have someone discuss it with Brother Daren's subordinates. The three of us will have a good idea. Good, it's a deal. Zhang Daren's heart was set. He smiled at Fairy Jing. I'll have to trouble Fairy Jing to protect Taoist Xiao. I'll go over there and take a look. Senior Daoran, please. Fairy Jing respectfully bowed and sent Zhang Daoran away. Seeing Zhang Daoran leave, Xiao Hua sat cross-legged on the snow with his 5 hearts facing the sky. His mind entered his body to investigate. When Fairy Jing saw Xiao Hua circulating his energy, she didn't dare to come over and disturb him. She only slightly released her divine sense to guard the surroundings. Kong Han Wu is truly insidious and cunning. The green-robed Xiao Hua was now in control of his nascent soul. He spat out golden light from his mouth, spreading the medicinal power of the heavenly mending pill and repairing his damaged Dantian bit by bit. When he saw the Jade Archive Xiao Hua enter, he gnashed his teeth and said, "Your methods are also vicious. Our corporeal bodies have been tempered, and our meridians are incomparable to those of ordinary cultivators. That so-called nascent soul annihilation art can penetrate the corporeal body and directly attack the Dantian, and even destroy the nascent soul. If I hadn't gone out with my nascent soul, I'm afraid I would have been killed by him. Once bitten, twice shy." Jade Archive Xiao Hua sighed slightly. "This time we suffered a great loss, but the harvest is not small. In the end, nearly 100 nascent souls of the demon purification pot were taken away by the fiend saber. I'm afraid he won't be able to take away many of them." Upon hearing the harvest, the green-robed Xiao Hua was immensely proud of himself. He smiled and said, "Right now, you and I have a lot of empty nascent souls. I want to wear one. Look at one and throw another one to the side. Empty nascent souls." Jade Archive Xiao Hua frowned. "Aren't the nascent souls that we seized from the whirlpool in the demon refining gourd all intact?" The green-robed Xiao Hua shook his head and said, "The nascent souls are all intact, but a lot of them have already been destroyed. The huge whirlpool outside the demon refining gourd is used to destroy the nascent souls and nascent souls. The longer they stay inside, the thinner their nascent souls will be. If I didn't have the Kunlun mirror and the spiritual fire, I would have already been powerless to protect myself. How could I save Taoist Jingting? Oh, this is troublesome." Jade Archive Xiao Hua frowned. "I still wanted to save these nascent soul cultivators and let them cultivate scattered nascent souls. The Immortal Palace is also strange. Why do they have so many nascent souls?" The green-robed Xiao Hua was quite puzzled. Jade Archive Xiao Hua shrugged. "I'm afraid you'll have to ask that immortal envoy in Kong Hongwu. Unfortunately, Kong Hongwu was killed by the demonic saber, and even his nascent soul didn't escape. There's simply no way to interrogate him." "Right. Doshan Jun's Spiritual Sense Control Ink Cloud pupil has a secret technique to control nascent souls using spiritual sense." The green-robed Xiao Hua suggested again. "Although this secret technique is really sinister, it's suitable for these nascent souls whose nascent souls have yet to reach perfection. It's better than letting their nascent souls dissipate in a muddle, right? Moreover, fellow Taoist is proficient in nascent soul branding and nascent soul splitting techniques. In addition, your spiritual sense has been tempered to such a terrifying level in the Rockfall Matrix. This nascent soul is simply tailor-made for fellow Taoist." "That's not all." A voice faintly resounded in the void like heavenly thunder. Jade Archive Xiao Hua raised his head in surprise. Soul Cultivator fellow Taoist has also made progress?" "That's right, fellow Taoist. Please come in for a chat." Soul Cultivator Xiao Hua said with a smile. Jade Archive Xiao Hua's figure flashed and disappeared into the mysterious dark clouds. After a moment, he returned to his Dantian with a smile. Soul Cultivator Xiao Hua had already comprehended several soul cultivation techniques. Among them, there was a technique to repair the nascent soul, or rather, a beginner technique to repair the soul. Isn't this what Xiao Hua needs the most right now? Great! Green-robed Xiao Hua urged his invisible nascent soul to clap his hands and laugh. It's really like someone giving you a pillow when you're sleepy. Now that everything is ready, I don't even need the east wind anymore. Indeed, Xiao Hua nodded. However, I seized 12 nascent souls from the swirl in the demon purification pot, and 11 were seized by fellow Taoist in green robe, including the 117 nascent souls that fellow Taoist in green robe sent into the lost realm of Kunlun when he was refining the Kunlun mirror in the swirl. We have over 140 nascent souls that are still missing. It will take a lot of time and energy to repair the nascent souls of these nascent souls without using the secret technique of telepathic thoughts. Don't be a hypocrite. The green-robed Xiao Hua sneered. Who knows what kind of character these nascent soul cultivators have? If you don't use your secret technique, how are you going to control them? Don't be a snake-warming farmer. And I will naturally consider this. Xiao Hua smiled. You don't have to worry, fellow Taoist green-robe. That's good. The green-robed Xiao Hua didn't speak anymore. In fact, after this Yao Tai meeting, it's obvious where our shortcomings are. Jade Archive Xiao Hua said, I need a more powerful spiritual weapon, or even a spiritual treasure. And the green-robed Xiao Hua curled his lips. He knew that his problem had come, so he only responded lazily. The soul-punishing vital light needs to be refined again. The previous two nascent soul sword spirits were already difficult to kill a fifth-stage essence chi cultivator. Moreover, the previous soul-punishing vital light mainly had an en-type sword spirit, which was too soft. Many cultivators' defensive magic treasures couldn't be pierced through. This time, I obtained Taoist Huda's fire gourd. I can refine it into the soul-punishing vital light. There's also that spatial monster's thigh. The green-robed Xiao Hua saw that he couldn't refuse, so he blinked his eyes and said, the tip of that thigh can pierce through the void. It's very sharp. There's no harm in refining it into the soul-punishing vital light. You only need to use the tip. Xiao Hua knew that the green-robed Xiao Hua's words were very reasonable. He thought for a moment and said, I feel that there are other uses for other places. Good. The green-robed Xiao Hua clapped his hands. Just this little bit is enough. There's also the soaring dragon shears. Xiao Hua said again. Previously, I felt that this thing was only half a piece, so I didn't want to refine it. I wanted to wait until I gathered all the pieces. Unfortunately, even a last piece of the Kunlun mirror has been found, but this thing has no clues at all. Taoist green-robed, please refine it while you're at it. While I'm at it. The green-robed Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. Does Taoist know how difficult it was for I to refine the Kunlun mirror? To tell the truth, if it wasn't a matter of life and death, I wouldn't have been able to refine it easily. Xiao Hua, of course, instantly said, that's why Taoist is several times more powerful than I. I can only trouble Taoist for this matter. I heard Confucian Taoist drop a book bag, saying something about a hands-off shopkeeper. Taoist, isn't he talking about you? The green-robed Xiao Hua said somewhat eccentrically. Confucian Taoist Xiao Hua's voice uncontrollably sounded above his head. He then hurriedly explained, Taoist. This isn't what I said. It's what the green-robed Xiao Hua said himself. No matter. Fellow Taoists are all improving. I'm also very happy, Xiao Hua said with a smile. He then handed over the sword gourd, fire gourd, and soaring dragon shears to the green-robed Xiao Hua, waiting for him to refine it after he repaired his dantian. Give it to me. The green-robed Xiao Hua stretched out his hand. Without Taoist blood essence, I can't refine it. Xiao Hua sighed and waved his hand. Taoists should first prepare your dantian and slowly nourish the two magic treasures. It's really not easy for I to take out my blood essence now. Let's wait a bit. That bastard Mo Ling has seriously injured us. The green-robed Xiao Hua was silent. After a while, he advised in a low voice, Taoist, Mo Ling is an outsider after all. You can't trust him. That demonic technique is also a technique of the demonic realm. You and I are humans. It's fine if we don't cultivate it. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. Maybe before, but now I have been forced to do something beyond my ability. If I don't cultivate the demonic technique, I can't control the demonic saber. If I don't control the demonic saber, I'll always be in danger of being controlled by the demonic saber. Taoist, what do you think we should do? This demonic saber is also strange. That demonic dragon has clearly been swallowed into a demonic spirit. How can it still be so arrogant? Confucian Taoist Xiao Hua gritted his teeth. Even I can't completely restrain it. Since it's a maggot in the bone, we can only slowly think of a way. Xiao Hua said, although this demonic saber is really powerful and can kill a 5th-grade elemental energy great grandmaster like it's a toy, the backlash is too strong. Actually, fellow Taoists, don't you all feel that everyone is a bit affected? Saint Sung once said, I reflect on myself 3 times a day. Am I not loyal to others? Make friends but don't trust them? Pass it down and don't learn it? Xiao Hua's face turned cold. He asked, Confucian Taoist, have you never read it? Why don't you reflect on yourself? Why don't you understand yourself and create a grudge against Taoist Xiao Hua? Chapter 3668. Sigh, fellow immortal is right. The Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua let out a long sigh. My Confucian cultivator's righteous qi is innately capable of suppressing devilish qi, but if it is corroded by a devilish spirit, the degree of damage is also several times greater than that of fellow immortals. This matter, I was wrong. Hee, it's best to correct your mistakes. The green-robed Xiao Hua spoke first. Fellow Taoist, you've already given Green Robe the magic tool of the Taoist sect. Shouldn't you also give my Confucian cultivator's imperial magic tool to me? The regretful Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua asked for the imperial magic tool, as if he wanted to make up for his mistake. Jade Archive Xiao Hua thought for a moment, then nodded and said, That's right. The Imperial Star Spike and the Imperial Shield should be given to fellow Taoist. There are also some things for Confucian cultivators. These aren't urgent. After fellow Taoist Green Robe organizes them, I'll give them to fellow Taoist to comprehend. Actually, Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua hesitated for a bit before saying, I feel that the Confucian cultivator's Tao is a single breath. All the divine abilities are the same as the Buddhist sect's divine abilities. There is still a gap when compared to the Tao sects. I will refine these imperial equipment and will also help a mortal friend fight your enemies. But a mortal friend shouldn't expect too much. I naturally know this. Jade Archive Xiao Hua cupped his hands and said, All right, let's not talk about this anymore. After this calamity, we all have to learn from our mistakes. The path of cultivation is really too long. I hope that everyone can reach the peak. Haha, I've reached the peak. Doesn't that mean you've also reached the peak? The green-robed Xiao Hua smiled and then said to the scholarly cultivator Xiao Hua, Scholarly cultivator Xiao Hua, you shouldn't covet Kong Hongwu's Chinquan bag. Although I have been recuperating and haven't carefully examined it, I can roughly see that in addition to the star card and other things Kong Hongwu cultivated, most of it is my Tao sect's magic treasures and cultivation methods. It was most likely the body he had collected in the hidden immortal continent. On the other hand, the cosmos pouches of the other 3-star lord have quite a few good items. Speaking up to here, the green-robed Xiao Hua looked at the Jade Archive. Xiao Hua said, That's right, fellow Taoist Jade Archive. Within Kong Hongwu's Chinquan pouch, there are indeed a few good items for my Tao sect. There are even many secret techniques. There is a jade box with a lot of runes on it. Those runes are the talismans of the Tao sect, and there is definitely something strange inside. Fellow Taoist, why don't you go take a look? All right, I understand. When Jade Archive Xiao Hua heard that Kong Hongwu's Chinquan bag didn't have many things from Starlord Palace, he lost interest and nodded slightly. I will go take a look now. Farewell, fellow Taoist. The green-robed Xiao Hua cupped his hands and said with a smile. Xiao Hua waved his hand, and with a flicker of his figure, he appeared in the space. After looking at Kong Hongwu's cosmos sack, he reached into it and took out a jade box. Sure enough, just as the green-robed Xiao Hua had said, this jade box was overflowing with extraordinary splendor, and there were countless strange runes on it. These runes were very simple, and Xiao Hua couldn't recognize the Jade Archive. However, this did not hinder Xiao Hua. He casually opened the jade box, and countless runes flew out from the jade box, turning into specks of light that floated in the air. As the runes dissipated, boom! With a low rumble, several auras of awe-inspiring auras rushed out of the jade box. Presumably, All of you fellow Taoists are convinced in your heart. Leaving the treasures you've obtained with other fellow Taoists is also a relief. If this Xiao has the opportunity 3 years later, I'll definitely go and participate in the conference at that time. Once Xiao Hua's words came out, the several hundred cultivators had different expressions on their faces. Some looked pensive, some looked disapproving, and even some looked disdainful. Xiao Hua naturally didn't feel that his words could change everything. He already felt pretty good that he was able to seize this opportunity to speak his mind. Immediately after, Xiao Hua waved his hand again, and several hundred jade eyes fell down like rain. 1 or 2 fell in front of each cultivator's eyes. Oh! The crowd of cultivators looked at the jade eyes with puzzlement. They didn't know whether they should take it or not. Xiao Hua cupped his hands and said, "Fellow Taoists, this Xiao has a matter to ask of you. Inside these jade eyes are low-level mental cultivation methods from foundation establishment to enlightened realm. There are also some mental cultivation methods that are different from the current cultivation methods. This Xiao hopes that you fellow Taoists can take these jade eyes back, or pass them on to your own disciples, or gift them to the later generations of Taoist disciples. Of course, if you fellow Taoists can copy them and gift them to Confucian disciples with potential, this Xiao will be even more grateful." "Ha ha ha, that's easy." When Master Sun Kong heard this, he flicked his big sleeve and took the jade eyes in front of him. He said with a smile, "This old man will let the disciples make 10,000 copies and pass them on to other low-level disciples. Hee, I also have no problem." When the crowd of cultivators heard this, they naturally agreed without hesitation. It was just helping Xiao Hua distribute the cultivation methods. It was simply a matter of lifting their hands. "Many thanks, fellow Taoists." Xiao Hua was overjoyed. He raised his hand and saluted everyone. Then, the crowd of cultivators chatted with Xiao Hua for a while, trying to get familiar with him, and flew away respectively. Seeing that everyone had left, and Master Sun Kong and Zhang Daoran were also about to say goodbye, Xiao Hua thought of something and said with a smile, "Fellow Taoists are the senior experts of my Taoist cultivators in the hidden immortal continent. My Taoist lineage's inheritance will also have to rely on fellow Taoists." Chapter 36-69. Then, Xiao Hua told them about his suspicions that Confucian cultivators had tampered with the Taoist techniques. Zhang Daoran and Sun Kong had cultivated for thousands of years and had encountered far more things than Xiao Hua, so how could they not feel anything? However, they had always been minding their own business. They were already very happy that they had obtained the correct techniques, so how could they care about others? Now that Xiao Hua mentioned it, he even took out a lot of cultivation methods to ask them to teach their disciples. Of course, they all agreed. Finally, before the two left, Xiao Hua specially asked them to help him find children with good aptitudes, and there was no limit to the number, the more the better. Sun Kong and Zhang Daoran knew that Xiao Hua wanted to teach disciples, so they wanted to remind him, but when they thought about how high Xiao Hua's cultivation was, how could he not know the pros and cons? They didn't mention it and cupped their hands to bid farewell to Xiao Hua. Fairy Jing naturally stayed by Xiao Hua's side. She looked at Xiao Hua's actions with a dumbfounded expression. These were things she had never thought about before. In her heart, as long as she could cultivate to nascent soul, then late nascent soul, it would be her life's greatest goal. She didn't dare to hope for out-of-body cultivators, so her agreement with Xiao Hua was just a joke. After everyone had left, Fairy Jing said in a low voice, "Xiao Hua, what are you doing all this for? Are you trying to revitalize the Taoist sect? Are you trying to develop your own power? Is it because your power isn't enough, so you don't want to become sworn brothers with Sun Kong and Zhang Daoran?" Speaking of sworn brothers, Fairy Jing couldn't help but think of Xiao Hua's famous words, and her face flushed. If you're talking about revitalizing the Taoist sect, this Zhao's power isn't enough, Xiao Hua said with a smile. Then just think of it as developing my own power. Although this Zhao's cultivation is good, I don't have many disciples under me, and many of them are good and bad. So it's like that. Fairy Jing nodded, but she understood that just developing her own power didn't need to be so troublesome. This is a great man. Fairy Jing couldn't help but praise in her heart. Xiaohua didn't know that he was so great in Fairy Jing's heart. He waved his hand and said, "Let's go. This Xiao still has some things to do. You have to escort this Xiao." Of course. Fairy Jing smiled and was abnormally quiet. "Oh, actually," Xiaohua thought for a moment and finally said, "I didn't suffer such heavy injuries." "Nonsense," Fairy Jing said angrily. "I'm the only one who knows about your injuries. Your nascent soul is damaged, and your dantian is damaged. Why don't you release your nascent soul for me to see?" Xiaohua sweated. Even if his nascent soul was in perfect condition, it still couldn't be seen by others. He raised his hand, wanting to cast a spell, but right now, he didn't have any magic power in his body, so he could only cast Confucian cultivation techniques. Forget it. This Zhao's nascent soul isn't wearing any treasured armor. Xiaohua shrugged helplessly. Cheeky. The corner of Fairy Jing's mouth curled up as she spat again. Her expression was one of joy. After flying with Xiaohua for a while, Fairy Jing was somewhat bewildered and said in a low voice, "Fellow Taoist Xiao, you want to go to the front of Yaotai Mountain?" "Yeah," Xiaohua said with a smile. "This Xiao still has 2 new disciples there, and this Xiao still has some trivial matters to attend to," Fairy Jing advised. "Fellow Taoist Xiao, this time's Yaotai Mountain gathering was really strange. I feel that, besides the strange treasure that Kong Hongwu mentioned, there must be something else that we don't know about. In particular, in the end, the Dragon Gate of the Yaotai Mountain gathering didn't appear, and that so-called Rainbow Bridge was even more strange. It's better for us to leave Yaotai Mountain as soon as possible." Xiaohua was well aware of this, but as a Taoist cultivator who killed Kong Hongwu, he should stay here at this time. Even if someone from the Immortal Palace came to investigate, he would appear calm and not easily be suspected by the Immortal Palace. Of course, this kind of calmness couldn't be too excessive. If people felt that he had nothing to fear, he would be suspected of trying to hide something. Therefore, Xiaohua nodded. "Fairy Jing is right. Let's hurry to the front of the mountain and leave as soon as we finish our business." When Fairy Jing heard Xiaohua say hurry, she immediately stretched out her hand and held Xiaohua's arm. She urged her magic power, and her figure turned into a rainbow and flew into the distance. Xiaohua smiled bitterly and could only let it be. He didn't know where the scorching sun formation was set up on Yaotai Mountain, but it took Fairy Jing more than an hour to bring Xiaohua to Yaotai Mountain. Perhaps it was because some cultivators had already come here, or perhaps it had already been a year since the Yaotai Mountain gathering began, but the previously lively Yaotai Mountain had become a lot more desolate. Not to mention the tents stationed in front of the mountain, even the Taoist cultivators flying in the air had almost disappeared. Xiaohua didn't wait for them to arrive and had already released his divine sense. After Chang Yu and Wu Tian sensed it, they immediately flew out from their secluded cultivation and stood respectfully in the air. When Xiaohua and Fairy Jing arrived, the two looked at Fairy Jing very curiously and bowed. "Greetings, Taoist Xiao. Greetings, Senior." Xiaohua smiled and said to the two, "This is Fairy Jing. She saved this old man at the Yaotai Mountain gathering." Then he told them about Chang Yu and Wu Tian's origins. The two didn't dare to be negligent and said respectfully again, "Many thanks, Fairy Jing." Fairy Jing waved her hand and took out 2 magic treasures from her bosom, handing them over to the two, saying, "This is the first time we've met. I don't know what hobbies you have, but I obtained these 2 magic treasures in my early years. Take them." Chang Yu and Wu Tian didn't dare to take them and looked at Xiaohua. "Haha, take them," Xiaohua said with a smile. "In the future, Fairy Jing won't be an outsider. You can treat her as your senior." "Yes, we understand." Chang Yu and Wu Tian smiled. Seeming to understand something, they reached out to take the magic treasures. Xiaohua's words were clearly ambiguous. Even if Fairy Jing heard it, her face turned slightly red. But let alone Fairy Jing, even Xiao Hua himself understood that at this moment, as long as one listened attentively, they would definitely have different meanings unless he didn't say anything. Since Xiao Hua said he could treat Fairy Jing as his senior, Chang Yu didn't hold back and said in a low voice, "Master, did you succeed?" Disciple heard that this time's Jade Pavilion gathering was a great calamity. Out of 10 nascent soul seniors, less than 10% of Jindan cultivators survived. Master? Fairy Jing's beautiful eyes flashed with a strange splendor. She increasingly felt that there were too many things she couldn't see through on Xiaohua. When Master takes action, how could I leave anything empty? Xiaohua chuckled, looking very wretched, as if he was going to steal chickens and touch dogs. Congratulations, Master. You can be the master of a country. Chang Yu and Wu Tian were overjoyed and bowed to salute. Congratulations, congratulations. Xiaohua waved his hand and said, "How has your cultivation been recently? Have you thought it through?" Wu Tian rushed to say, "Disciple came to Jade Mountain to die. Disciple cleaned up the cave. As long as Master comes out, Disciple will follow Master to Black Wind Ridge." Chang Yu also smiled and said, "Master's cultivation method. Disciple's cultivation is very smooth. Moreover, Disciple also saw Junior Brother's progress. There's no deviation. Although Disciple didn't expect to go to Black Wind Ridge, it doesn't matter if Disciple goes back a few years later. Disciple will follow Master to Black Wind Ridge." "Good. Since that's the case, you all go to Black Wind Ridge first," Xiao Hua said and waved his hand, taking out the jade box containing the lot of the state preceptor from the space. "What? Master isn't going back to Black Wind Ridge?" Chang Yu and Wu Tian were stunned. Even Fairy Jing was shocked. "Fellow Taoist Xiao, you aren't going back to Black Wind Ridge? Where are you going? With your current situation, it's better to cultivate as soon as possible." This Xiao Hua was about to explain. Wu, a ray of light appeared in the distance, turning into a ray of light that fell in front of Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua grabbed it with his hand. It was the message talisman he refined. "Oh," Xiao Hua's eyes lit up, and he said with a smile, "We'll talk about this later. This Xiao's good news is coming." Sure enough, after a short while, that 1,000-demon sacred realms Ingpa brought 2 demons over. The 3 of them were wearing strange armors that covered their faces and bodies, but the grayish-white demon clouds under their feet still exposed their identities. Seeing the 3 demons flying over, the doubt on Fairy Jing's face became even stronger. Xiao Hua urged his body to fly forward for a while, and he cupped his hands. Fellow Taoist Ingpa is indeed a trustworthy person. Cough, cough. No, a demon with trustworthiness. This Xiao just came out of the Jade Pavilion conference, and I have good news. Ingpa smiled and cupped his hands. This one congratulates Taoist Xiao. This year, those who can come down from Jade Mountain are all elites of the Hidden Immortal Continent's Taoist sections. Although this one heard a lot of alarmist news, this one firmly believes that Taoist Xiao can return safely. You're welcome, Xiao Hua said with a smile. This one was just lucky to escape death. Fellow Taoist must have noticed that this one is already injured. Therefore, this one is far from being the elite that fellow Taoist thinks. Ingpa waved his hand. This one doesn't care if you are an elite of the Taoist sects or not. What this one cares about is Taoist Zhao's trustworthiness. Then he took out 2 Qingquan bags from his waist. The 2 demons behind him also hurriedly took out 4 Qingquan bags and handed them to Xiao Hua together. Ingpa didn't do anything special. The 2 demons behind him slightly flew forward a few steps and sandwiched Xiao Hua in the middle, as if they were afraid that Xiao Hua would escape. Seeing this, Ingpa said with a bitter smile, "Taoist Xiao, please don't blame them. This one's clansmen have suffered too many losses in front of the human race. There are too many tricks that they can't think of. Even if this one took out Taoist Zhao's vitality stones, the clansmen wouldn't dare to believe it too much. And this old man can understand." Xiao Hua nodded and didn't think it was strange. He waved his hand and took out several small Chinquan bags and handed them to Ingpa and the two demons, saying, "You guys take the vitality stones first. This one will look at the things inside." Ingpa didn't take the small Chinquan bags, but said a few strange words indifferently. The two demons hurriedly took the small Chinquan bags and looked at each other, then flew back behind Ingpa. "Okay, this time, thank you, fellow Taoist." Xiao Hua took out a jade-eye bag and handed it to Ingpa, saying, "Next time, if fellow Taoist has something, you can send it to the place recorded on the jade-eye bag. This one's imprint is inside. It's also recorded who you give it to. They will pay fellow Taoist enough vitality stones." Chapter 3670. Seeing Xiao Hua like this, Ingpa was stunned and said in a low voice, "Taoist master, you don't want to take a look at the things inside?" "No need," Xiao Hua said with a smile. "To be honest, the things I need are all rare and strange. Taoist friend might not have the things inside. However, if I only want my own things, then wouldn't you be wasting your time on the other things? Rather than letting Taoist friend run around for nothing, I might as well take them all." Hearing this, Ingpa was silent for a moment and stretched out his hand. Those were obviously demon claws covered in light brown fur. Xiao Hua smiled and stretched out his hand to shake Ingpo's hand. The brown fur on Ingpo's hand was very sharp and prickly. However, Xiao Hua looked straight at Ingpo's face that was hidden in the armor and didn't care at all. "Taoist friend is the first trustworthy person I met in the hidden immortal continent." Ingpa looked into Xiao Hua's eyes and said in a low voice, "If the first transaction was for profit, then the future transactions with Taoist master will also be for profit." Huh? Xiao Hua originally thought that Ingpo's second sentence would have a twist, but who knew that Ingpo would be so straightforward? Xiao Hua couldn't help but laugh. "Taoist master, please don't laugh. For the survival of my clan, profit is the most important thing. Of course, other than profit, I will do my best and even use the power of my entire clan to serve Taoist Master Xiao." Ingpa said immediately. After speaking, Ingpa let go of his hand, and Xiao Hua also withdrew his hand with a smile. Xiao Hua naturally didn't think that what Ingpa said was the same as what Ao Zhantian and the others said. So he said with a smile, "To be able to obtain Taoist friends' trust, I am also honored. However, I don't know if the primeval stones I took out are enough. If not, how much more do you need? I will make up for it." Ingpa asked the two demons several times in a low voice, and then said with a smile, "Taoist master has more than enough. My clan is very satisfied. If Taoist doesn't have anything else, I will take my leave. I will find the things and send them to the place Taoist master wants." After sending Ingpa off, Fairy Jing brought Changyu and Wu Tianfei over and said with a smile, "Taoist master Xiao has friends all over the world. Even the demons of the 1,000 demon sacred realm are old acquaintances." "Not at all, not at all." Xiao Hua waved his hand. "It's just that we met during the negotiation. Fellow Taoist Xiao, the items in the 1,000 demon sacred realm are indeed suitable for Taoist cultivators, but most of them are harmful to the physical body." Fairy Jing reminded him with concern, "Fellow Taoist, you must be extremely careful when using them." "Yes, thank you for your reminder." Xiao Hua naturally knew that Fairy Jing had good intentions and agreed with a smile. Fairy Jing then asked, "Also, fellow Xiao, where are you going instead of returning to the Black Wind Ridge to cultivate?" "Hee, Fairy, don't be anxious. Come with me to watch a good show, and then I'll tell you." Xiao Hua giggled. He waved his hand and brought Fairy Jing, Changyu, and the others to where the alliance was. Not to mention Fairy Jing, even Changyu and Wu Tian were confused. They didn't know what Xiao Hua meant. However, when they saw Xue Ping hurriedly flying out of the barracks before Xiao Hua landed, Changyu and Wu Tian thought of something. "Senior." Xue Ping's face was filled with ecstasy. He bowed and greeted. Junior congratulates Senior on leaving the Jadistage gathering unscathed. "Yes." Xiao Hua didn't stop and landed in the largest tent in the alliance. he said as he flew. Is your monarch still here? Yes. Shui Ping hurriedly followed. Although he didn't know why Xiao Hua was moving forward in such a hurry, he didn't dare to ask. He smiled and said, My monarch is a benevolent monarch. He emphasizes finishing what he started. He definitely won't leave the Jadestage gathering early. Although there was news before noon that not many cultivators could leave the Jadestage gathering, my monarch still waited here and prepared to be the last to leave. Good. Xiao Hua looked at the tent that was getting closer and closer. He narrowed his eyes and said, Did you mention me to Xiao Jun? Shui Ping shrunk his neck and said in a low voice, Junior didn't dare to forget Senior's instructions. Junior didn't mention it. I hope Senior can give my monarch a surprise. Ha ha ha, of course. I'll definitely give Xiao Jun a surprise. Xiao Hua laughed loudly. His laughter actually had a different meaning. Shui Ping was stunned and looked at Xiao Hua in surprise. After all, from Xiao Hua's tone, he seemed to be familiar with Xiao Jun. Then, seeing that Xiao Hua was already dozens of feet away from the tent, Shui Ping hurriedly reminded him, Say, Senior, my monarch's tent is right in front. Please wait for a moment. Allow Junior to inform him. Shui Ping's forehead was already sweating when he said this, and he was stuttering a little. He already felt that something was amiss. When he thought about it carefully, he immediately realized that there was something strange about it. There's no need to inform him, Xiao Hua said coldly. Shui Ping's heart clenched and he opened his mouth. But yes, although Xiao Hua was a nascent soul senior and looked down on Xiao Jun, this was the military camp of the Chanyang Kingdom after all. This tent was the golden tent of the monarch of the Chanyang Kingdom. Xiao Hua clearly didn't care about Xiao Jun and the Chanyang Kingdom by barging in so openly. Who dares to barge in my monarch's golden tent? As he spoke, several cultivators dressed in different clothes flew out from the left side of the tent. The cultivator at the front, who was at the 3rd grade of Essence Force, shouted coldly, Oomph! Xiao Hua snorted coldly. With a sweep of his divine sense, these cultivators stopped in their tracks and hugged their heads with their hands as if they were in extreme pain. Hee, you two are indeed here. I'm sure you already know why I'm here. Xiao Hua swept his gaze and saw 2 old men in the middle of these cultivators. One of the old men was holding a Buddhist staff. Weren't they the 2 people who protected Xiao Jian while playing chess in front of the Tidal River Temple? Xiao Hua, you're Xiao Hua. Once Xiao Hua spoke, the 2 old men naturally came to their senses. They had seen Xiao Hua and Xiao Jian being intimate, so how could they not know the relationship between Xiao Hua and Xiao Jian? Xiao Hua's appearance didn't change much, but after all, his bearing could change people. How could the current Xiao Hua be compared to the Xiao Hua who was in dire straits and wore Xiao Jian's Taoist robes? Hurry! The old man was about to shout a warning. Boom! Xiao Hua didn't seem to do anything, but the 2 old men were dragged out from the crowd of cultivators by Xiao Hua. No matter how they opened their mouths, they couldn't utter a single word. Shui Ping was sweating profusely. At this point, how could he not know? He had wholeheartedly wanted to find a strong helper for the single Liang Kingdom, but he didn't expect to become Xiao Jun's mortal enemy. Say, Senior, Shui Ping hastily begged. Shut up, Xiao Hua berated. I know what I'm doing. Shui Ping was helpless. He bit his lip and turned to look behind Xiao Hua. Fairy Jing had long concealed her cultivation and looked similar to Chang Yu and the others. The 3 of them were astonished at first, but when they saw that there were people from the Buddhist sect among these cultivators, they calmed down and thought that there was a rift between Xiao Hua and the Buddhist sect. Therefore, they ignored Shui Ping's gaze. Woo! Xiao Hua flew to the front of the golden tent and raised his hand. The many soldiers standing guard in front of the golden tent were swept aside by the hurricane, and the tent door was immediately opened. Xiao Hua sneered as he landed in front of the tent door. He didn't even look at the nearby armored soldiers who were rushing over. He stepped into the golden tent and said, Xiao Jun, your enemy asked me to come see you. Are you ready? Are you going to return the throne you snatched from someone else? Do you want me to take your head, or do you want to deliver it to me? Do you want me to take away your throne, Or do you want me to take away your single Yang kingdom? Boom! Upon hearing this, Shui Ping's head went blank. His body trembled in midair, and he almost fell. Naturally, there were many people inside the golden tent. In front of him were several generals with shining weapons in their hands. Their faces were vigilant as they blocked Xiao Hua's path. Behind these generals were several Buddhist protectors. Each of them held a Buddhist weapon in their hands as they looked at Xiao Hua with bright eyes. Layers of telekinesis were emitted from their bodies. Behind these people was a tall and sturdy monarch wearing an apricot yellow hat and a bright yellow embroidered dragon robe. He was frowning as he looked at Xiao Hua with a puzzled expression. Of course, when this monarch saw Xiao Hua's appearance, he immediately understood something, and his face revealed a trace of relief. Xiao Hua walked into the golden tent and narrowed his eyes to look at the monarch's appearance. He saw that Xiao Jun, whom he had never met before, looked completely different from Xiao Jian. Xiao Jian was a wretched old man, but this Xiao Jun was not only tall, but also had a dignified appearance. He had a square face and large eyes under his thick eyebrows flashed with a dignified divine light. He had a dignified appearance, and even his mottled white hair made others feel a sense of respect. What? He looked at Xiao Jun and coldly said, "You want to fight with this old man?" Without waiting for Xiao Jun to reply, Xiao Hua took a step forward. An invisible force pushed the general, who was at least a grade 2 origin energy, to the side. That general clenched his teeth and raised the treasured saber in his hand. Before he could do anything, Xiao Hua coldly snorted. That general immediately flew away from Xiao Hua's eyes. With a pu sound, he crashed into the side of the golden tent and fell to the ground. "Protect the emperor! Protect the emperor!" A Buddhist cultivator in front of Xiao Jun shouted as he prepared to take out his Buddhist weapon. "Stop!" Xiao Jun shouted. His face was calm as he said, "This is my private matter. It has nothing to do with you. Don't worry, monarch. Even if this cultivator..." How could the Buddhist sect cultivators give up? But before they could say anything, Fairy Jing let out a cold snort and released the pressure of a nascent soul cultivator. The Buddhist sect cultivators were all submerged by this pressure and found it difficult to even open their mouths. Fortunately, Fairy Jing only revealed a bit of her power and immediately withdrew her pressure. The cultivators in the tent were all shocked. That's right, a nascent soul cultivator who came out of the Jade Pavilion conference should have just experienced a life and death situation. How could these people compare to her? You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.